Okay. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. We are still in prison. موعظة السجن. We got to وفرح الناس ويوسف, right?
One of the two men said, I saw myself squeezing alcohol.
وقص عليه رؤياهما قال أحدهما إني أراني أعصر خمرا. Okay, go ahead.
Translation?
Yes.
قال أحد بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله قال يصلي رحمه الله قال أحدهما إني أراني أعصر خمرا, and one of the two men said, I saw myself squeezing alcohol.
Well, not alcohol. Khamr is wine. I don't like translating khamr as alcohol. Alcohol is a chemical group, and khamr specifically is wine, which is the what grape juice turns into, and it affects your mental capacities. Okay? Inni arani a'siru khamra. So what does that mean? Inni arani a'siru khamra.
The translation or the interpretation?
Well, we said we can't translate. It's the Quran, can't translate. ودخل معه السجن فتيان. This is interesting. It says those were two servants of the king. One of them was the chef of the king, and one of them was the what's the person that works in a bar called? Bartender. But what do you call the one who is in charge of drinks typically? So chef is in charge of food. What's the one in charge of drink? A barista. Exactly. Yeah. That they both basically had conspired, one to poison him, and one to poison him in his food. So they both were put in prison, and then they noticed that Joseph was interpreting dreams. So they said, let's try this Hebrew slave. So then they basically claimed to have dreamed. So the barista, you said? That's like the coffee barista too, right? The barista said, I am juicing grapes. That's the interpretation. أعصر خمرة, because you don't juice wine. What do you juice? You juice grapes to produce wine. And then the chef said, it's as if I'm carrying on top of my head bread. So in other tafasir it says there was a conspiracy against the king to assassinate him. They collected some money and they gave them to these two employees of the king so they can poison him in his food and in his drink. But the barista change his mind. But the baker, the chef, accepted the bribe and put poison in the food. And when they presented the food, the barista said to the king, "Be careful, the food is poisoned." And the baker said, "Don't drink because the drink is poisoned." So then the king told the barista, "Drink." And he drank and nothing hurt him. And he tells the baker, "Eat from the food." And he refused. So he gave it to an animal, and the animal ate it and died. So then the king ordered both of them to be locked up. And Joseph, what he was doing in prison is that he was teaching people in the prison, and he also informed them that I interpret dreams. So then one of them said, let's try this guy out. And although they hadn't seen anything, they just claimed that they saw something because they wanted to see what Joseph will say about them. And then other narrations say they actually did see a dream. It says that Joseph actually saw them and they looked like they were very depressed. It's like, what's going on with you guys? So then they tell him the story and that they saw a bad dream. And then Joseph says, "Tell me your dreams." And when the barista gives him his part, he says he called Inab Khamr because that is what it's going to turn into. In Arabic they say he's baking ajur. Ajur is when you have a vase. What is a vase made out of? Porcelain. Say baking porcelain, although porcelain is what the end product. You bake something to turn it into porcelain. Yeah. So asa is to juice, and we had that word whenever we covered Surah Al-Asr, right? Inna lanaraka min al-muhsinin. This is from last week. One of the narrations says, how was he generous? He says, if anyone was sick in prison, he would visit him and he would nurse him. If the place got tight, he would give people space. I'm going to use some activist lingo. He would make space and hold space. Do you guys know about making space and holding space? What's holding space? Can we hold space right now?
Holding space. It sounds like something takes up too much space.
No.
Oh, dang.
You hold space for the man. You guys are really disappointing me.
I haven't been in school.
You haven't been in school. You haven't been in any of the woke circles. That's not good. You need to wake up. If anyone was in need of something, he would actually get it for him. And with all of that, he was involved in devotion and worship. He would stand up all night long in vigil and qiyam. And he said he went into prison. Another narration says he goes into prison and he notices some people who were in really bad shape. So he started consoling them and giving them solace. And he says, you guys, if you're patient, you will be rewarded. And they said, you're so good, you're so kind, you're so beautiful, your words are nice, your looks are nice, and your character is nice. So then they're like, who are you? And he says, I am Joseph, the son of Jacob, the son of Isaac, the son of Ibrahim. And he gives each one of those prophets a name. He says, Ana Yusuf ibn Safiyillah. Safiyillah is God's chosen one. Ibn Dhabihillah, the son of the one that God sacrificed. Of course, this narration is talking about Isaac being the sacrificial one. The son of Khalilullah, Ibrahim. Then warden of prison, he says, if it was up to me, I would have let you free. But what I'm going to do is you get to choose whichever prison cell you want. Another narration says that these two young people, when they saw him, they came up to him and they're like, we loved you the moment we saw you. So Joseph told them, I ask you by God, don't love me, because whoever loves me gets in trouble for my love. He's like, my aunt loved me and I was tested by that. My father loved me and I was thrown in prison because of that. The wife of the king loved me and I'm locked up because of that. So then when they told him their vision, he didn't actually wish to interpret it for them, because he noticed that one of them would have a bad end. Anyway, so that's from Tafsir al-Baghawi. So Tafsir al-Baghawi is one of the classical tafasir. It's one of the oldest tafasir that we have, and he brings a lot of narrations, and a lot of the narrations are actually also like biblical narrations or from Judaica, especially when it comes to the stories. So you'll have a lot of details whenever it comes to the stories, and you won't find them elsewhere. And this is one of the earliest books. I think he's in the 4th century of the Hijrah, so that's very early on. Yes?
So is there a difference of opinion as to whether it was Ismail or Ishmael?
Yeah, we said there is a difference of opinion. In common Muslim culture, it's Ismail. And the strongest narrations, if you combine hadith to it, push towards that. But if you were to look at tafsir, from the time of the Sahaba, the predominant opinion is that it was Ishaq, it was Isaac. But one can always say that that's because of influence of Judeo-Christian influences. But my reading of the Bible in its current form, it's very confusing, because it says he sacrificed his only son, and then it says Isaac. But the Bible itself says that Ishmael was older, right? But they have their own interpretive method of saying, well, Ishmael was not a legitimate child, because he's the son of a slave, he's not a son of a free woman, and so on and so forth. Yeah, but we discussed this. We discussed it in the story of Ibrahim. Okay, so that's that. Just wanted to share that. But khamr is wine. Keep that in your mind. Khamr is wine specifically. And then the way I like to translate this term is intoxicants. And intoxicants are more, it's a general term, which would include liquid form, gas form, and solid form. Any intoxicant would have the same kind of ruling Islamically. Okay. وقال الآخر
فقال الآخر إني أراني أحمل فوق رأسي خبزا تأكل الطير منه. And the other man said, indeed I saw myself carrying bread on top of my head, and the birds were eating from it.
Yeah.
وسألا يوسف عن التأويل. And the two men asked Joseph of the interpretation.
They asked him about the interpretation. Okay.
وكان يوسف نبيا من الأنبياء. And Joseph was a prophet from among the prophets.
So I don't know about that. Was he a prophet at this time or not? I don't know. I don't have any solid evidence to that. But that's what this story is saying here. Okay?
Did you skip the line?
Hmm?
Did you skip the line before that?
Alima. Yes, you did skip a line.
Thank you. وكان يوسف عالما بتأويل الرؤيا. And Joseph knew the interpretation of dreams.
Aliman was an expert He didn't just know. كان عالما, he was an expert. That's what a alim is. That's why I don't like using the word alim. Of course, Desis are very keen on saying, are you a alim? We don't say that. In Arabic, we don't say that. That's a very high rank, and I don't think it's appropriate to use it for any like imam or sheikh or speaker. And then that gets translated into a scholar, and that's even more problematic. So we're not scholars. We may have some knowledge that we've been blessed with, but that level, again, we spoke about this when it came to titles way early on. I don't like these titles, and I don't like what, and we have to educate people about them. Don't use it as like, yeah, we are scholars or this and that. But there is certain times where it's good to possibly showcase that. So for example, like when a commoner is talking nonsense, you should ask them what their credentials are. So like your credentials is you have a store, that's what you do, that's your expertise. Well, my expertise is I studied this tradition. So in that case, I have to showcase that part. Not necessarily to say I'm a scholar. We should not claim that which we are not. But to say I spent 10 plus years studying Islam, I don't have a problem saying that. What did you spend studying Islam? Sunday school. Okay, so like, I'm not going to take your word seriously. Yeah.
Should we use the word ustad then?
Ustad is actually the highest form of scholarship. And in modern standard Arabic, that's a full professor. Ustad is a full professor. And again, this is the irony, is that Ustad now is used for like the people who are non-sheikhs. So like one of the people who made it popular is Nu'man Ali Khan, Ustad Nu'man Ali Khan. Now I don't know why I didn't talk to him about this, but it could be a play on word, because if you know the Arabic language, you know that that's the top-notch expert, an Ustad. It's basically the expert teacher is called an Ustad. And then in modern standard Arabic, Ustad would be a full professor, like the highest level of academic achievement. But in our lingo here is like after brother they become Ustad. That's how they evolve. And then from Ustad, I don't know, they become, we said Sheikh or Imam.
Should they just be brother then?
You know, brother is not even from Islam. Like the Sahaba didn't say brother so-and-so and sister so-and-so. They just called each other by name. That's another huge thing. Where does this come from? I don't really know, but then it just becomes common culture. Like they didn't call each other, hey brother Umar ibn al-Khattab. They said, Ya Umar. Bas, that's it. That he has a name. What's the name for? Right? And then if you really want to get nitty-gritty about it, there's a few reasons where this comes from. One is like secret societies, because they have codes in addressing each other. That's one thing. The second thing is Christian doctrine. In Christianity, they call each other brother and sister, especially in certain denominations. They say brother so-and-so and sister so-and-so. Yes, it's out of respect, but we have to investigate, where did we get this from? How did we get here? Right? This is the teaching you how to be skeptics and questioning everything, and then you start questioning yourself. You're like, what am I? You know? So I don't know where this comes from. I think people should just be introduced by their name. Somebody was introducing me in a New Muslim Academy lecture, and they said something that troubled me, because they said in the introduction, they said he has a lot of experience, years of experience dealing with new Muslims. I just felt that it was very distasteful to say that. Why is that? Because basically it's making me seem like I'm an expert about new Muslims, and in reality only the new Muslim is an expert in his own life. So you can't claim to be an expert. Yes, I've spent time with them, I teach them, I educate them, but to claim that expertise I think is really not correct at all. But people say all types of things, and that's why we have to stop people. You know, that's why some of our teachers, whenever they have these intros, they would stop the person, stop talking. I don't need you to read my biography. But other people, it inflates their egos. They enjoy it. They're like, yeah, keep going. Tell him some more. Tell him about my latest publication. He won't say it out loud, but he's feeling it inside. That's an internal heart disease. It's like, how about you just judge the person on their merit for what they have to present right there and then? Because sometimes they read like a thesis biography and then you hear the person like, I wish he shut up. Well, he didn't get me anything. There's no type of, what's the word? Not content, the other word. Like there's no meaning, another word for meaning. Substance, yes. There's no substance. It's like he's just talking and using big words, but what did I get out of it? Not much. So, كان يوسف عالما, but then it qualifies it. It didn't say عالما. If you just say عالما, it means he was an expert scholar. It says عالما بتأويل الرؤيا. He was an expert, or he was knowledgeable in interpreting dreams. So this is a form of knowledge. تأويل الرؤيا is a form of knowledge. Many people are really into this topic, and some people live in their dreams. I'm also very careful about this topic, and I'm not an expert. A lot of people decide to share their dreams with me, and I say, I don't know. If it's good, I give them the general things. If it's good, it's from Allah. If it's bad, it's from shaitan. If it's mixed up stuff, then it's just mixed up stuff. That's the bare minimum. But now, there are some people who have been gifted with this. There are scholars who know this. And there are some people who use it for bad reasons as well, because it's a huge way for you. Many people have dreams, right? I mean, it's a huge source of income for you to be the go-to person for interpreting dreams. So this is something to be careful of. There is a famous book that is, I believe, translated to English. It's called Tafsir al-Ru'a wal-Ahlam by, who's the author? Maybe Ibn Abi Dunya or something. Or Ibn Sirin. The famous one is Ibn Sirin. The interpretation of dreams by Ibn Sirin. First of all, we don't even know if he actually authored that book. And I don't know how good the translation is. So I would be very, very careful. Always try to go back to things that are very founded on the Quran and the Sunnah, not just on people's own ideas. Because what happens in dreams is that dreams are actually symbols. What you see in a dream is a symbol for something else. So like you see an object, it's not that object. So the Prophet ﷺ saw that like in one of the dreams he saw something, and the interpretation was that many of his Sahaba would die. And it was right before the Battle of Uhud. What did he actually see? He saw like cows dying. It had nothing to do with humans, right? There was no battle. Interpreting, one thing was drinking a cup of milk. Umar saw this dream, and the interpretation was, this is knowledge. This is knowledge. So dreams a lot of times are based on symbols, and this form of knowledge sometimes is a gift that Allah gives certain people, and sometimes people learn it as well. So it's acquired, but a lot of it has to do with just the person just being blessed to have a type of sharpness in their mind. This is not about intellect. This is a special gift. Allah knows best. And alhamdulillah, I'm not one of those people, so you don't need to worry about me giving you interpretation. But those things, by the way, get a lot of people in trouble. It's a fitna for people receiving it and for the people interpreting it, because you become basically the go-to person. Whenever somebody is the go-to, they start thinking that they have like some special role or special status to play, and that's dangerous for the ego. So you have to be aware of that when you start becoming the go-to person, when you yourself have not developed yet. it may be counterproductive. Like there is this famous person in the Middle East who was an expert in dream interpretation. And then he started giving lectures. And he's almost like the official mufti of that country now, and he's being used for their political agenda to attack other scholars. But you look at his track record, all he was a dream interpreter. And how did he get this role? So he basically became prominent on their official TV station. He interpreted the dream of one of the royal family, one of the women in the royal family. She got her dream interpreted, so it's like, I want him on TV to interpret everybody's dreams. And then slowly but surely, the guy now is a mess. He used to preach one thing, I mean they have the before and the after. He used to preach one thing, now he's contradicting everything he preached before. The latest thing he's gotten himself into is doubting Sahih al-Bukhari. He's gotten that far now, to doubt Sahih al-Bukhari and to say that it's not. So it's a very scary thing. May Allah protect us. Another scary thing is when people do Quranic healing on others, ruqya. Because there's a lot of fake people in that field as well. And this is something that many people are in need of. Right? So whenever people are in need of something, there's an opportunity for that to be misused. Right? Whenever there is high demand. So we have to be extra careful, extra vigilant whenever it comes to religious matters. So many people are like, they have just good hearts, but it's kind of stupid. It's being naive. They're like, yeah, they're doing good. And you look, so someone, for example, leading a community, just because it's like in some far off area, right? So there's no imams. And this person is a good orator, and they have like charisma, and they have a strong personality. Immediately, the best thing you can do is become an imam, because nobody wants to do that job. And he read a few things, and that's it, he becomes imam. And then you see the evolution. They go from imam to mufti to scholar to expert, and then there is a lot of things that happen after that. Initially, they had no credentials to begin with. And many times whenever you hear issues of spiritual abuse and things of that sort, it's these types of people. It's not the real scholars. But guess who gets the bad rap now? The people who actually legitimately studied, who are righteous and God-fearing, people start thinking, oh, all these imams are like this. All these people are like that. But if you really look deep, it's a sickness that is within the community that anybody who speaks well is just given that type of pedestal. So may Allah protect us and may Allah guide us. So again, this is a huge responsibility on people who are learned to investigate. When you start learning, don't just, whoever opens their mouth, they're like, wow, they're amazing. No, just do some research. Listen attentively. People are like, no, just listen for the good that they have. If you hear somebody saying something awful, this person should not be speaking. Sometimes I try doing this. It's actually very troubling. I think I told you guys this before. The only reason I give khutbah is so I don't have to hear other people give khutbah. But sometimes I would be sick and I have to go listen, and then I hear someone say the most ridiculous thing. You find out this guy is like the ultimate imam in his area, and there's no competition and no one cares. So God knows what he's telling people. And I sat in one khutbah of this guy and one lecture, and I took down notes. And then I sent it to the masjid admin. I said, how is this guy teaching in your masjid? No answer. He's available. That's it. So instead of investing in would you do this for any other job? Any other like respectable job? Would you not have like a proper interview and find out what this person's background is? Background check, right? That's almost unheard of in many organizations. What? Background check. So like it's so interesting right now. I hear of people who are like they join organizations where they're like I guess the Muslim activism, right? But like some of those same people have like some very shady pasts. Like they were involved with the same people that this Muslim group is against now. It's like, did you guys even do any background check on this person? How does it make any sense? So let's say like we have an anti-Zionism organization, and then someone joins it, but like a few years ago, this person was pro-Zionism. They didn't convert. He just didn't do any background check. It's like, yeah, we got one. Somebody joined our team. It's like free agency. Anyway, may Allah protect us. So be careful of ta'wil al-ru'a, dream interpretation. 2, spiritual healing. And those 2 things, there is such a high demand because everyone sees dreams and everyone thinks that their medical problem is a spiritual problem. They would do ruqya before they go to a therapist and before they go to a physician, especially if it's like mental health related. The default is that this person has jinn in them. Go to the magician. That's what they are. But go to the raqi. Some of them are magicians. May Allah protect us. I just heard a story. Like it's so heavy. It's some woman did magic on her husband because he was messing around. Okay, she did this so she can like win him back. Years down the line, her 2 sons start developing major mental health issues. She checks back with the magician and she's like, yeah, when I did magic on your husband, I also did it on your sons. And it's like, what did we do, right? That's what happens when you go against Allah's commands. May Allah protect us and may Allah guide us. Okay, moving on. وَكَانَ يُوسُفُ نَبِيًّا مِنَ الْأَنْبِيَاءِ. This is a true statement, but I don't know if it's a true statement at this time in prison. Was he a prophet yet? Allahu A'lam. I don't know about that. One may say, well, he was because Allah spoke to him when he was in the well initially. So I don't know. I can't say that. What was his religion? Islam. Why are we confident that his religion was Islam? This is something I want you to leave this year with. All the prophets were what? Muslim. The Quran quotes every single one of them saying, I am a Muslim. Muslimin. There is no other religion. There is Islam. That's God's religion. So he definitely was a Muslim because he's the son of Jacob, the son of Isaac, the son of Abraham. We said, what is that called? The golden chain. You don't get better than that. Prophet, son of prophet, son of prophet, son of prophet. عليهم الصلاة والسلام. طيب, وكان الناس
وكان الناس في زمانه يعبدون غير الله. And the people of his time worshipped other than Allah.
It's not just people in his time. This is a side point. The majority of human history, people worship other than Allah. This is something that is a fact. The majority of human history, people worship other than Allah. Even the ones that worship Allah, they don't worship Him on His terms. That's another scary part. And that's why Allah says, وَمَا أَكْثَرُ النَّاسِ وَلَوْ حَرَصْتَ بِمُؤْمِنِينَ. And most people, even if you try your hardest, would not be believers. Or not believers. And He was addressing His Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the fact that Allah chose you to worship Him is a huge what? Blessing. Allah selected you for this. So like one of my teachers, he's like, man, if I spend my whole life in sajda, I don't think I would show Allah enough gratitude. He's like, the way Allah took me out of, kufr and jahiliyyah and made me Muslim. Like, if I spent my whole life in sajda, I don't think I would do, it's not enough gratitude. So the fact that, alhamdulillah, we're Muslim and we're able to study Islam and we're able to learn more about Allah is a huge, huge blessing that requires a lot of gratitude. Okay?
وَوَضَعُوا أَرْبَابًا كَثِيرَةً مِنْ عِنْدِ أَنفُسِهِمْ. And they place many lords for...
So wada'a is to place, but wada'a is also to make. Okay? In this context is to make or to produce. Like we said, fabricating a hadith is called what? Wad'u al-hadith, right? It's to make it up. So they made it up. That's what wada'u means here.
They produced many words for themselves.
Min indi anfusihim, from themselves. Meaning they had no authority to do this. Okay? Min indi anfusihim. Arbaban is the plural of Rabb. So you have Rabb and you have Arbab. And Allah is called Rabbul Arbab, the Lord of Lords. Of course, the more proper word is Rabbul Alameen, not just the Lord's, everyone. But it goes in line with saying Malikul Muluk, which is the King of Kings. Allah is the King of Kings. وَوَضَعُوا أَرْبَابًا كَثِيرَةً مِنْ عِنْدِ أَنفُسِهِمْ. So they produced a lot of false gods here. Of course, it doesn't say false, but there is no other Rabb beside Allah. Okay?
وَقَالُوا هَذَا رَبُّ الْبَرِّ. And they said, this is the Lord of the earth.
So al-bar is dry land. Dry land. You have al-bar and then you have al-bahr. Al-bar with a fatha. If you say al-bur, bur is wheat. If you say bir with kasra, is piety. Okay? So that's the importance of knowing the tashkil. Al-barru is land. So the Lord of land. And I said before when we spoke about mythology, this is how people came up with mythology. Is when they could not explain natural phenomena, they attributed gods to different natural phenomena. So the god of land, the god of the seas, the god of the skies, and so forth. Yes?
Do we have angels in regards to that?
Yes.
Angel of the land.
Yes. So that's the difference between revelation and mythology. Angels are tasked with different things in the universe. A lot of everything that happens in the universe, Allah has tasked angels to do it. So things don't just happen on their own. There's angels. Now we know specific roles of angels, like rainfall, like revelation, like wind, like mountains. Those are explicitly mentioned. Malakul Jibal. But there are some, of course, that they just came up with, like the god of sex, for example, the god of sport, the god of like in Greek mythology. We don't have those. That's. But yes, some of those roles are definitely angels in these roles. وهذا رب البحر.
This is the Lord of the ocean. Let's see. وَهَذَا رَبُّ الرِّزْقِ. This is the Lord of sustenance. And وَهَذَا رَبُّ الْمَطَرِ. And this is the Lord of the rain. وَكَانَ يُوسُفُ يَرَى كُلَّ ذَلِكَ وَيَضْحَكُ. And Joseph saw all of this and laughed.
And Joseph would see all of this. Kana would. He did this. He would see all of this and he would laugh. This is a laugh of sarcasm. This is not the laugh of like being entertained. Okay?
وكان يوسف يعلم كل ذلك ويبكي. And Joseph would know all of this and cry. وكان يوسف يريد أن يدعوهم إلى الله. And Joseph wanted them to be guided to Allah.
Wanted to invite them to Allah. Because remember, the role of the messenger is not to guide. The role of the messenger is to do what? To show. Right? So showing is by inviting. That's the role of Muslims. And may Allah guide us to assume this role. That's one of the most important roles that we should assume as we live among people who don't know about Islam. It is to showcase to them and to model devotion to Allah on his terms. So Yusuf, regardless of his circumstances and his condition, he recognized his purpose, which is to invite people to Allah. Okay?
وقد أراد الله أن يكون ذلك في السجن, and Allah wanted this all to be in the prison. Allah willed for this, meaning for this invitation, for this ministry to take place in prison. You may have something in your mind of what you want to achieve, but Allah has another plan for you. So Yusuf knows that he's supposed to call out this falsehood, but Allah made it in a way where he would do so in prison. Not the ideal situation, but that's how Allah had him. One may say, you can look into this, you can look into this as this is training ground for what to do when you're in outer society. So instead of feeling bad for oneself, it's like, look, I'm in this bad situation, my condition is terrible, I'm not free. No, look at it in a positive way. This is my training ground. It's, what do they call it when you have a control study, right? Instead of studying all of society, what do they do when they do research? A controlled study. They select certain people and they study them specifically. And then you can base your research off of that control study. Okay? وَقَدْ أَرَادَ اللَّهُ أَن يَكُونَ ذَلِكَ فِي السِّجْنِ. And then? ولا يستحق أهل السجن الموعظة. Why did the people of the prison laughing at the call?
ألا يستحق.
This is where my
يستحق comes from حق. حق is right. So يستحق is to deserve. To deserve. Not Islamu alaykum, Assalamu alaykum. Islam alaykum doesn't work according to Islam. You have to say Assalamu alaykum. Put an alif lam. Except if you're from the 5%ers. The 5%ers, they say Islamu alaykum. We're not 5%ers. ألا يستحق أهل السجن. أهل السجن are the people in prison. Do they not deserve al-maw'idha? What did we say the meaning for maw'idha is? Maw'idha means? That was the title of this chapter. Maw'idha to sijn.
Soft reminder. Heart softener.
Heart softener, yes, the reminder, admonition is it. So do the people of prison not deserve this? Of course they do. Everyone deserves it. That's the key. Is that don't ever underestimate good words. Everyone is in need of good words. It's like, but you're a sheikh, you don't need the reminder. No, I need it too. I was like, but you know all this stuff. Even if you know stuff, it doesn't mean you can't benefit from it. The reminder benefits the believer. Okay? So this here is clearly from the author. He's trying to engage you. He's trying to make you think. Do the people of the prison not deserve? Ala is asking in this negation form. Ala ta'kulu. Will you not eat? Ala yastahiqqu ahlu sijni al-maw'idhata. Do not the people of the prison, meaning the inmates, that's what it's talking about specifically. The inmates, don't they require what? Al-maw'idha, which is a reminder. Okay?
anyone else has a translation?
Want to try? Go ahead.
أيستحق أهل السجن الرحمة? Do not the inmates deserve mercy and compassion?
Good. Compassion. I think compassion is more accurate, or even saying empathy in this context. Okay?
أليس أهل السجن عباد الله? Are the inmates not slaves of Allah?
Slaves of Allah or servants of Allah?
أليس
I said before that the word slave may have a negative connotation for many people, so it's good to not use it, except if people won't get that bad connotation. But we're definitely slaves of Allah. I mean, if you're talking about property, we are the property of Allah.
أليس أهل السجن بني آدم? Are the inmates not humans?
Not human, are they not the children of Adam?
كان يوسف في السجن. Yusuf was in prison. ولكنه كان حرا جريئا. But rather he was free and innocent.
Hurran is free. So it's like an oxymoron. How can you be locked up but you're free? Jari'an, jur'a comes from having guts or having say fulanun jari, not just guts. What's the word? Did we say it here before? Gumption? Did we do gumption before? You guys know what gumption means? Shrewd or spirited initiative and resourcefulness. I don't know if that's the word here, but I don't. Well, it is aggressiveness. That's it. That's what jari is. To be aggressive, to be a go-get-em basically type of person. That's what jari is. Courageous. Okay.
كان يوسف فقيرا. Yusuf was poor. ولكنه كان جوادا سخيا. But rather he was.
Not rather. However.
He was.
So although Joseph was poor, however, he was jawadan sakhiyan. Jawad is very generous. Grit is another word, yes. Thank you, Mustafa. Courage and resolve, strength of character. Yeah. Those are called I think they're called the 5 G's. There's a book that's called Public Speaking for Success by Dale Carnegie. And I think he has those 5 G's in it. And there's grit, there's gumption, and one of them is God. But things that you should have. That's a good book, by the way, for you to look into. They recommend that book for public speaking. Okay? Jawad means someone who's very generous. And sakhiyan also is generosity. What's the difference between these two words? There is a slight difference. So Jawad comes from Jud. Jada yajudu. And if you look it up, it says as-sakhi. Jawad means sakhi. So they defined it by the other word we're trying to look for, right? Okay.
إن الأنبياء يجهرون بالحق في كل مكان. Surely the prophets,
Allah.
is that like show or bring out?
يجهرون. جهر is to be public. يجهرون بالحق. So to publicize or to speak openly. So jahara is to speak openly. Asarra is to speak quietly. من أسر القول ومن جهر به. So those are the two ways of communication. You can either do jahr or you can do sir. Loud, public, or quiet, private. الأنبياء يجهرون بالحق. They
Speak openly with the truth.
They express openly the truth في كل مكان.
In every place.
In every place. Regardless of the place, the prophets speak the truth. Okay?
إن الأنبياء يجودون بالخير في كل زمان. Surely the prophets are generous with good in every time.
The prophets are generous with all types of good in every time. Yes. Okay, thank you. Let's move on to the next one. Bismillah, let's read. And let's start off with Sarah.
حكمة يوسف قال يوسف في نفسه
قال
يوسف في نفسه إن الحاجة ساقتي الرجلين إلي وإن صاحب الحاجة يلين ويخضع وإن صاحب الحاجة يطيع ويسمع فلو قلت لهما شيئا لسمع وسمع أهل السجن ولكن يوسف لم يستعجل بل قال لهما أنا أخبركما بتأويل الرؤيا قبل أن يأتيكما طعامكما فجلس واطمأن ثم قال لهما يوسف أنا عالم بتأويل الرؤيا ذلكما مما علمني ربي ففرح واطمأن وهنا وجد يوسف الفرصة فبدأ
موعظته. دايما
بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. قال المؤلف رحمه الله حكمة يوسف. قال يوسف في نفسه إن الحاجة ساقتي الرجلين إلي وإن صاحب الحاجة يلين ويخضع وإن صاحب الحاجة يطيع ويسمع فلو قلت لهما شيئا لسمع وسمع أهل السجن ولكن يوسف لم يستعجل
بل قال لهما أنا أخبركما بتأويل الرؤيا قبل أن يأتيكما طعامكما فجلسا واطمأنا ثم قال لهما يوسف أنا عالم بتأويل الرؤيا ذلكما مما علمني ربي ففرحا واطمأنا وهنا وجد يوسف الفرصة فبدأ موعظته.
Okay.
الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه رحمه الله. حكمة يوسف قال يوسف في نفسه إن الحاجة ساقط الرجلين إلي وإن صاحب الحاجة يمين ويخدع وإن صاحب الحاجة يطيع ويسمع فلو قلت لهما شيئا وسمع أهل السجن ولكن يوسف لم يستعجل بل قال لهما أنا أخبركما بتأويل الرؤيا قبل أن يأتيكما طعامكما فجلسا واطمأنا ثم قال لهما يوسف أنا عالم بتأويل الرؤيا ذلكما مما علمني ربي ففرحا واطمأنا وهنا وجد يوسف الفرصة فبدأ موعظته.
Okay. بسم الله.
حكمة يوسف قال يوسف في نفسه إن الحاجة ساقت الرجلين إلي وإن صاحب الحاجة يلين ويخضع وإن صاحب الحاجة يطيع ويسمع فلو قلت لهما شيئا وسمع أهل السجن ولكن يوسف لم يستعجل بل قال لهما أنا أخبركما بتأويل الرؤيا قبل أن يأتيكما طعامكما فجلسا واطمأنا ثم قال لهما يوسف أنا عالم بتأويل الرؤيا ذلكما مما علمني ربي ففرحا واطمأنا وهنا وجد يوسف الفرصة فبدأ موعظته.
حكمة يوسف قال يوسف في نفسه إن الحاجة ساقت الرجلين إلي وإن صاحب الحاجة يلين ويخضع وإن صاحب الحاجة يطيع ويسمع فلو قلت لهما شيئا وسمع أهل السجن ولكن يوسف لم يستعجل ولكن يوسف لم يستعجل بل قال لهما أنا أخبركما بتأويل الرؤيا قبل أن يأتيكما طعامكما فجلسا واطمأنا ثم قال لهما يوسف أنا عالم بتأويل الرؤيا ذلكما مما علمني ربي ففرحا واطمأنا وهنا وجد يوسف الفرصة فبدأ موعظته.
Okay, before we get to this, I just wanted to share with you because sometimes when I share some things, maybe people's minds go to like people that they may know directly, and I don't think we know the same people. And an example of that is yesterday in the New Muslim Academy class that we had. So I'm talking and the students can type in like here. It's a similar program, I guess. And one of the sisters says she's from Germany, or I think he's a brother, says he's from Germany. I have no idea who these people are, they just sign up and they join. And one says she's from Bulgaria. I mean, that's like, right, really far away, subhanAllah. One of the sisters, I later find out she's from Canada. So I said in passing, I said, it's good for you guys to take notes and, maybe you can share it with someone and you'll get the reward. We were talking about certain dua, certain prayers to be said. And I said, you never know, whenever they use this dua, you'll be getting a share of the reward if you share the notes with them. So one of the students, and this is just so how weird these things are. One of the students, I guess, types out what I was saying, and then all of a sudden it appears on the chat box. And she's like, I'm sorry, that was by mistake. I said, no, actually, that's a good mistake. Because it's not just people that are outside that you can share it with. Maybe not everyone is as fast as you and you were able to take it down. And people can benefit. And subhanAllah, I had no idea what was about to come, but it was, again, you don't know what you're dealing with. One sister said, well, it still won't help a blind person like me. She's blind. And she's tuning in and listening. Now you would think having written things down makes it easy on you. That's if you know how to see. But if you can't see, is it easy for you? No, it's not. We have no idea what people are dealing with. Then a few minutes later, a sister says, another person, I'm guessing sister because of the names. Again, I don't want to misidentify people because some of the names are like European names. But like one person had a European name and said Ibn something, so I guessed he's a male, but I didn't know what kind of name that was. It's like some type of German name. So then she says, can you please, what did she say? Can you share what was said before? I just joined and I am at work. Like people are working and they're still tuning in to benefit from that lecture. So whenever I mention stories, by the way, many of my stories are from outer space. So consider that, like when I share with you, not so you can try to point this out to someone in your life or a case that you may know of, rather to take the moral of the story. Remember we said that about stories? Is take the moral of the story. So what is the moral that I can apply in my life? So like for example, what did we talk about earlier? We talked about a lot of things, man. Talked about, for example, dream interpretation. So just because I mentioned something about dream interpreters, I remember my first experience with dream interpreters, it was a Muslim magazine in the 90s. And the so-called sheikh would interpret dreams. There was a section for interpretation of dreams. And I always thought, wow, that's very interesting. You just, like send it out, and the guy I talked about in the TV, it's not a local person, I mentioned also like the thing with magic. This weekend I was watching a brief thing. It's like a documentary, when they dramatize documentaries, what is that called?
I don't know, but it's really good.
So somehow it was, well, to me it's disturbing. You would think it's good, but I don't like them, because to me it tampers with the history. I'd rather the PBS old documentaries with the still pictures from that era than when they dramatize them, because when they dramatize, what they're doing is they're messing your own way of imagining the story. Like one of the brothers in chaplaincy was asking me about the Umar series. I guess it's a series that came out several years back. And I said, they didn't dress this way. This is not how they used to dress. And he was just shocked. I said that type of clothing came about several hundred years after Umar's time. It would be unheard of for Umar to wear this type of stuff. But that's what sticks in people's minds. Many of people's memories back in my time, I don't know if anybody still watches it, but the movie The Message. So the movie The Message is like people's ideas. They imagine Bilal looks like the black guy in The Message. Hamza looks like Sean Connery. Is that the guy's name, the actor? It was Sean?
I thought it was Anthony Quinn.
Anthony Quinn, yeah. So that's Hamza in their imagination. That's a big problem. Anyway, so I was looking at, they were discussing something about Salem. Salem with witch hunts. And the reason I say this is because, how I said earlier, somebody went to a witch or went to some type of person to do magic on their husband. So it says in Salem, that same time period, because Salem was the Puritans and they were doing witch hunts and stuff like that. The pastor of the colony was called Paris, his last name. So they were talking about him. But then they said something I wasn't aware of, that century in Europe, tens of thousands of witches were put to death in Europe. So before the Puritans even came to America, this is something that was known there. But when we hear of witch hunts, it always goes back to who? The Puritans in Massachusetts specifically and in Salem. But there is actually a history to that. And these people are not Muslim, right? You may think, well, the example I'm giving is a Muslim example. No, I come across a lot of non-Muslim examples. And then how do I find out about them? These people become Muslim. So what happens when they become Muslim? They think all their problems are going to get solved. But there is still a lot of issues that have to be unpacked. May Allah guide us and protect us. Anyway, you really don't know what's going on. There are so many things involved, and you should just try to learn and find out more. And the last thing you should ever do is take something that you hear and apply it to someone that you know. Don't do that. That's not good. Hikmah to Yusuf. The word hikmah translates to wisdom. But the root of this word actually comes from hakama. And hakama is what you put in the horse's mouth to control the horse. What is that called? A bit, or is it called the bridle as well?
That's the whole thing.
That's the whole thing. But the bit is this thing? Yeah. Well, I guess it's the whole thing. And it prevents the horse from going out of line. Hikmah is supposed to prevent you from thinking out of line. Okay? And that's why it's called wisdom. And wisdom comes with old age, with life experience, and with knowledge of revelation. They have another definition of wisdom, of hikmah. They say, وَضْعُ الشَّيْءِ فِي مَحِلِّهِ. To put things in their proper place, that's hikmah. To put things in their proper place. We said the statement before, لِكُلِّ مَقَامٍ مَقَالٍ. So speaking appropriately in any given circumstance or condition, that's hikmah. Hikmah is not just knowing information, but using that information properly. Someone may have a lot of knowledge, but they don't have hikmah. What is the root? Ha-ka-ma is the root. Ha-ka-ma. And from that we have the meaning of we have the word for judging, hukm. You have hakim is the judge. Of course, in modern standard Arabic, hakim is translated as the one in authority. But it's actually not the one in authority, it's the judge. Because traditionally the judge had authority. Judge had authority. طيب, Hikmat Yusuf. So we're going to see how Yusuf alayhi salam utilizes his wisdom in sharing the message of Islam with the people. So we'll stop here, inshallah. Actually, the first line, قال يوسف في نفسه قال في نفسه. So he said within himself, meaning he thought to himself. He didn't actually say. Because qawl typically gives you the idea of something being expressed. But he's only expressing this to himself, so he's thinking to himself. And not thinking out loud, mind you. Because that's another thing that we say in English. Someone is thinking out loud. طيب, inshallah we'll continue. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. Do you guys know why people drink a little bit of water and then leave the rest of the water? Have you heard that tradition? What kind of tradition is that? Jahili tradition?
it's meant to be done.
Yeah, that's-
This would include this system, or just not.
Cases of like the day-to-day.
It was like that, like, visual agency. Or like, they
Yeah,
were-
it's just the, it's very, it's included the news. Obviously, they want the same amount of time that we used to have today, but I believe it.
This is really close to debate. It's anything once you show up late on purpose.
I know that.
Maybe both. Maybe it's just not perfect. I think they show up late. The story goes, it's like, you purposely showed up late. I don't know, however many lates. However many lates. And when he showed up to the actual debate, the other guy was like, "Where were you?" He was like, "Oh, I couldn't cross this river. I was waiting." Somehow the trees started breaking down, branches came together, all these like nuts and bolts came together and created a boat for me to travel across. And I got in the boat, I traveled across the river. The guy says something to the effect of like, how's that possible? We're just like making this up. And he's like, can you expect the world to just together on its own and not have a creator or something along those lines? I'm not sure you know something better. But so yeah, it's pretty cool.
Imagine keeping a straight face while saying that. I was just waiting for the tree to slow down.
cold in here, right? Who's here on Friday? You on Friday? Was anyone else here on Friday?
From the girls' Maria and Fatima.
Huh?
From the girls' Maria and Fatima.
The laws are saying you have it.
I must be. You said Maryam, I couldn't remember who that was. You said Maryam and Fatima. I was like, who's Maryam? I think it's. I just couldn't. I was like, which girl is Maryam?
Why did you say that?
I paused. I was like, shoot. You know, I was like, why am I drawing a blank right now? And then the first thing that came to mind was the other Maryam. Remember? Yes, there was another Maryam.
Oh, yeah.
Huh? She was there like in the beginning of the year. Maryam Ansari, there we go. Maryam Ansari. I was like, she came. Like, no.
So fun. We did verbs and then we were assigned homework.
Huh?
We did verbs and we were assigned homework.
Perfect. He did the different verb patterns with you?
Verb patterns, yeah. And, he was homework on the first verb pattern, I believe it was, the variations.
Okay. So you went through kind of the 10 different, or like did he just give you half of them? Or?
There was a first verb form and the 6 variations of that first verb form.
Okay.
And then we did passive. Now, the passive variation is just 1 for that first verb form. But for the active, it's 6.
We did the Mali and
1 6. No, I don't want to do that. Say that again, Mas.
So, no, I was looking at the packet. What was I going to say? Yes, we did the first verb form. We did the 6 different variations for the active.
Which are? So, the first verb form is? Fa'ala. What are the 6 different variations?
Good question. Fa'ala, fa'ila, fa'ula.
Okay.
Is that 3? Oh no, it's like branched out. So like, yeah. So fa'ula, yep.
Did he write it, or did he give you a chart, or?
We wrote it on his.
Okay.
I'll stop there, but yeah, and then after we did the passive form.
What were the 6? First of all, give me the 6 different variations.
Okay, so I did fa'ala, fa'ula, fa'ila.
When you say 6 different variations, you don't mean madi, mudari, command, fa'il, maf'ul, or do you mean the different patterns?
I mean the different patterns, I think. Yeah. I mean different patterns.
Mona?
I wrote them down.
Yeah. What are?
فعل يفعل فعل يفعل فعل يفعل فعل يفعل فاعل يفعل and then فعل يفعل.
That's what you were talking about?
Yeah, there's just 6.
But you guys knew these.
We did.
I'm just saying, right? You guys didn't act like you didn't know them. Please.
No, the whole thing was like review. But it was like basically you gotta know this by next week. You gotta practice it every day. You gotta write it. You gotta write it down.
Because he ain't joking about you gotta know it by next week, because he's coming this Friday to make sure you know it. This Friday, just so you know.
And that's not an excuse not to be here. But, I was making that known.
It's part of our etiquette.
Huh?
It's part of our etiquette.
So, once again, without looking at it, they were?
فعل يفعل فعل يفعل فعل يفعل.
Okay, stop. So, fa'ala has all three, right? Fa'ala, right? If it's fatha, 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 in the mudari' you have yaf'alu, yaf'ilu, yaf'ulu, right? We talked about this. Very clear, very straightforward. Good. What's the next one?
فعل يفعل.
And?
فعل يفعل.
Again?
يفعل.
فعل
يفعل.
Good. So if your madi is fa'ila now, fa'ila, you'll have yaf'alu and yaf'ilu. You won't have ulu. Okay? So that's 5, and then
فعل يفعل.
fa'ula yaf'ulu. Right? So that's 6. Right? If you guys remember, I told you that an easy way perhaps to remember this is that you have fa'ala, fa'ila, and fa'ula, right? Once again, fa'ala, fa'ila, and fa'ula, right? For each one, for fa'ala, for fa'ila, for fa'ula, for each one, you have a possibility of 3 options in the mudari'. Like hypothetically, you have 3 options. I'm not saying you actually do, but hypothetically you do, right? So you could go yaf'alu, yaf'ilu, and yaf'ulu for each one, hypothetically. Okay? Now for fa'ala, all 3 of them exist. For fa'ila, 2 out of the 3 exist. Which one doesn't exist? Yaf'ulu. That one that doesn't exist, when we go to the last category, which is fa'ula, it's the only one that exists. So it goes fa'ula, yaf'ulu, right? So out of, like you could say, 9 hypothetical situations, 6 of them exist. Does that make sense? Yes? Okay, so you guys did that. What else? That took like 5 minutes, but what else?
We went through different words.
Yeah.
Okay. What else?
So we did like the Mali passive voice and active voice in the bottom hasana.
Okay, there's another 5 minutes.
And yeah, each of us do it. Each of us do it, which took like, long time.
Another 15 minutes.
So then, by that, also you have to like assume that for some people it wasn't reviewed. So just like maybe extend 10 minutes for each.
Well, let's not speak about other people, Mons. Are you
I'll
speaking
speak
about
on
yourself, or you?
I'll speak on myself.
Oh, okay. Okay. This is kind of like,
Speaking in third person.
yeah. Okay. Did you guys do the different patterns?
The whole chart.
No, like for example, fa'ala, fa'ala, ifta'ala, istaf'ala.
That's next or this Friday. He's mentioned that we're going
Okay.
to review 2 to 10.
But whatchamacallit? Do you guys remember going through them?
In the past.
Not in the future. Unless you got some knowledge I don't know, we need to talk. You guys asked some great questions.
Yeah.
Do you guys remember going through them?
Yeah, a little bit.
Vaguely. Yeah. You guys remember I gave you a chart? Paper? Yeah. Somewhere in one of your trash cans at home. Right. If you still have that chart, bring that chart. It might help. There are some, as I mentioned, there are some mistakes on that chart, right? Like the fatha and the kasras are off, right? But as for the first column where it gives you like, hey, these are the different patterns, that's right, right? When it gives you the mudari', the amr, and so on and so forth, some of those have mistakes, right? But if you have that chart is very helpful, right? And perhaps Sheikh Farhan can go through that with you and fix the mistakes in it. Right?
Someone sent to us, right?
Huh?
That was the one emailed to us.
I don't know if it was emailed to you.
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah, no.
It was emailed? Okay. I know it was given to you physically. But that's like, for example, when you do fa'ala, right? Fa'ala, instead of fa'ala, right? Or fa'ila, fa'ula, like you start having more letters, right? So instead of just 3 letters, 4 letters. So you say fa'ala, which is 4 letters, right? As a, like for example, allama. Allama would be fa'ala, to teach, right? Or to inform someone or to tell someone is akhbara. Akhbara, right, would be on the pattern of af'ala. No, see? Have faith, bro. Istama'a. Istama'a. To listen attentively. Huh? Ifta'ala. Good. It would be on the pattern of ifta'ala. Istama'a. Ifta'ala. What about if'alla? If'alla. Huh? If'alla. This is used with colors. Like if'alla. You wanna say his face became red, right? You would say ihmarra. Ihmarra. Ihmarra wajhuhu. That his face became red. Ihmarra wajhuhu. Right? You could say, like, for example, the trees became green. Ikhbarrat. Ikhbarrat al-ashjaru. The trees became green. So these are the different patterns. Review it so you know. It seems like you know it even if you don't. Good. We got to do some fiqh. So, Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Sunnatihi ila al-din. Anyone pray anywhere in the past few days that they really enjoyed? Huh? In the weekend? First time? Like this Ramadan?
Yeah. At least for me and my sister.
Huh? At
My
least
sister went, but it was the first time for me.
Sheikh Faqih and Sheikh Mana? Anyone go anywhere else that they like enjoyed?
Okay, was nice.
Huh?
Okay.
Did you say something after that?
I said it was nice.
Was it your first time recently?
It was first time recently, yeah.
What?
Tarawih.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
I tried going to Glendale.
You tried
I
going
tried, but no one's told me that it was in the middle of a neighborhood and there was no parking anywhere.
Oh. So did you end up going?
Let's leave.
Was there like no
I
parking?
couldn't find parking like for like blocks. And I wasn't using my car, so I was like, I don't feel right like leaving this car like some off like neighborhood. So I was like,
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Glendale's like this. There's no parking. Saturday I was in Saturday I was in San Diego. There's this Somalian brother leading. Very nice, just like calm, peaceful, just nice. But on Friday was like probably one of the best tarawihs I've prayed in recent years. You guys remember Yusuf Dagush, who used to be at San Gabriel Valley? His older brother, Abdul Karim Dagush. He was leading at King Fahd. First 10, just killing it.
Was he leaving there last year also?
Huh?
Was he leaving there last year?
No, this is just one night.
Oh, okay.
This is just one night. There's an Abdul Karim that leads there. There's a Sheikh Abdul Karim that leads there regularly. That's from Saudi Arabia, right? Sheikh Abdul Karim Dagush was visiting. He visited that masjid last night. Yes. Is that like public? Or how do people know that? That's I only knew that because I was talking to him, but
Because I was with him on Saturday at the Grand Iftar.
at the Grand Iftar. Yeah, like if you guys are somewhere in the area, I would suggest praying behind him at some point in the next few days because he will be at. What'd you say? Today's Monday.
Yeah.
So today he'll be at
Masjid Umar.
Masjid Umar IIOC. Tomorrow he'll be at Civic. It's in your neighborhood, right? On the 15th he'll be at Rancho. That's Wednesday. And Thursday he'll just be at San Gabriel Valley. But you got this guy's like personally, and I ran this by Sheikh Jamil as well. Like for us in North America, he's like top 2, max top 3. Max top 3. He's just.
Who's that one?
That's what we're trying to decide. Who's that other one, right? But he's
Who's
just.
the pool of the top 3?
Huh?
Who's the pool that you're picking, deciding between number 1?
To be honest, I'm trying to find who the other. I'm trying to think who the other one is if I had to narrow it down. But I know for a fact that if I had a top 2, he's in it. Like I have. Right? I've been listening to him since like 2006, like 13 years. I don't know if I told you guys, but in 06 he came. Sheikh Faqih brought him because Sheikh Faqih had become imam, and he originally was in North Carolina. He knew the brothers from North Carolina. Yusuf came over for Taraweeh, but one of the nights he brought Abdul Kareem. Right, Abdul Kareem was unknown, right? Like at that time in 06, he was just unknown. Like he came and they had these CDs, one of just 28 and one of I'm gonna say just 16, Taha and Maryam. And they were like either giving them out or like selling them for something minimal. But like he led that night and he killed it. And I told my friends, I was like, this guy, just believe me, is gonna like be super popular. Like they're like, no. And I was like, just wait and see, right? And some of us took those CDs, right? And we played them on like just like repeatedly until they couldn't play anymore, right? I still have them in the house. But sure enough, a few years later, he was at the big conferences reciting, and But anyone ever not hear him before?
I've heard his brother, but
Huh?
I've heard his brother, but this is
Oh, you've never heard him
In person or?
in person? No, no, you have. You haven't?
I don't think so. Unless it was Monday.
Really? Oh God. I say for the man, like Friday, like I properly enjoyed Taraweeh. So. Look, I don't think recordings do justice, but we'll try. Why does WhatsApp do that?
Because when you do it like this, it's supposed to go to the sound there.
Personally, one of my favorites. But he was reading the ayat of wudu and tayammum, so I also played that. If you didn't catch that. But check him out, like I said, Umar Farouk tonight, Civic Tuesday, Rancho's kind of far, no one really lives there. Fatima lives there but doesn't go there. And then Thursday, San Gabriel Valley, which is local. Check him out. It's serious. Oh, then I went to a masjid. I'm not going to say what day, I'm not going to say where, but I went to pray Taraweeh, okay? And, sorry, forget it. We'll be right back.
It was like one of those really small community missions.
Okay.
And the person who led the mission, I've heard like Shuyukh talk about like people who don't know how to recite Fatiha properly, but I've never actually heard it. But it was just like stopping in weird places and like, yeah, and then
In Ramadan?
in Aisha, yeah. And then the surah that he was reciting after it was like leaving out like whole letters and words, and they were like just surahs, and I'm just like,
This is in Taraweeh.
no, it was just
Oh, yeah,
Aisha.
Aisha.
That was just, but I was sitting there, I was just like, I can't, I'm in the back of the, I don't want to like. I
Did the
can't-
same person lead Taraweeh or no?
No, that wasn't the person, but.
That's strange. They brought someone better to lead
Because
Taraweeh.
the sheikh who gave me the Taraweeh didn't want to come for the whole.
I got you. Got you. I get it.
What is that? You mentioned the different way to pronounce home to Himu.
So you have different recitations of the Quran, different variations, right? So it's not just like you could don't start reciting like that, Mars.
But I was wondering what does that do to the meaning?
So those specifically, that doesn't change the meaning. This is called wawul jama'ah, it's getting added, right? That doesn't change the meaning. There are some differences in the qira'at that have slight variations in meaning or give it a slightly different, meaning.
It's like tomato, tomato.
Huh?
It's like tomato, tomato.
For the most part, sometimes there is a, difference in like a word, the way it's said, or
And that's just like
yeah,
elevator versus lifts. Same thing,
yeah.
different way.
But sometimes it does give it like a whole different meaning. But usually it's elevators and lifts. I like that. Use that. That make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. And it's 25 minutes, guys. I could have read like a Jesus. Iman, what do you say? I know Iman's gonna disagree with me.
Oh no, I agree with your sentiment.
This is my issue, right? I stopped leading Taraweeh like for my own reasons. Like I felt like I did my time and time to retire. But like it's enjoyable praying behind someone that can recite properly and this and that, right? But I feel like the direction, not all communities, but some communities are going in with good intentions. They're trying to make things easy on the people, but I feel like they're like making things too easy on the people. Like, this whole thing about convenience and this, I get it. And I'm not talking about the whole discussion of 8 or 20. I don't really care. Like, pray 8, pray 20. I don't really care, right? But like, whatever you're gonna pray, like, make, like, for example, like if you're gonna lead 8, like, make them a proper 8, like where people have to stand a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Like, it shouldn't be like half a page in each rak'ah. It should be like minimum page, right? Like, we have to understand that part of Ramadan is qiyam, like standing, actual standing, right? If people think the rak'ahs are too long or whatever, it is what it is, right? Like, you stand for what you can stand, and when you get tired, you stop standing. And those that physically can't stand, don't, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, sit on a chair or whatever the case may be, right? But part of it is like standing. I get it, we're tired, I get it, right? That's fine. Pray as much as you can and leave. But like, I don't think the solution is like, making it really short and stuff and this and that. Like, to be honest, hey, the masajid that pray 8, I'm completely fine with that. But like, I would prefer, like personally, if I'm going there for 8, right, they read like a total of, I don't know, 2 pages in the first rak'ah, 1 page in the second rak'ah. Usually like 1 page and 1 page. It's like, dude, like, give me some more recitation.
I say that it's 8, but it's a long.
Yeah, IOC, that's why I like it. IOC is like, it's 8, but it's a proper 8. You know what I'm saying? And they do a khatma, they add the qiyam that they do, right? But it's a proper 8, right? And,
I remember saying that, I'm just like, I'm tired, I'm like,
right?
Yeah.
Right? But that's, like, to be honest, that's the essence right? Like the whole purpose of Ramadan is pushing yourself to a point where you get a little uncomfortable, right? I mean, that's where, there's greater reward in that. Like you got to push yourself a little bit. So like, hey, we got to make it short. I'm going to do it. Just go with it, Or like some masajid, they'll pray 20. I don't got an issue, but they'll make like the first 8 really short, and then like torture the people that are saying for 20, so they'll make the 12 long. I'm like, dude, what is going on here? Just like balance it out,
Testing your patience.
Huh?
Testing your patience.
Just like, I don't know. So that's why I'm like, I don't mind like, I understand actually like as an imam, like you have sometimes like, you want to teach people, give talks and stuff during the middle of Tarawih. I get it, like that's good. Like that's the best time to do it, most people coming, right? Someone qualified to speak, let them speak for 5 minutes. Let them speak for 10 minutes if it's, good. But still, that there be some quality standing, right? People complain, oh, the imam's going too slow. He's going, like, dude, like, who cares? Stand. I don't know. Very passionate about this. Okay, al-muhim. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. We finished lesson 6, correct? So we're on lesson 7. Gee.
Oh, sure. Did you never find that article by Mufti Qurtubi?
I will do that right after class today.
Awesome.
You just don't leave at 11:30. You remind me, because I need to do that. I keep forgetting. Okay. First topic of discussion today is Salatul Witr. Right. As we've mentioned in the past, according to the Hanafi school of thought, Witr prayer is wajib. It's mandatory. According to the other 3 schools, and according to the majority of the scholars, wajib is. Witr is sunnah mu'akkada. Sunnah mu'akkada. No one holds it as fard. Right? The Hanafis hold it as wajib, which is the category under fard, right? Which is essentially the same, right? You have to do it. If you do it, you are rewarded. If you leave it off, you are liable or deserving of punishment, right? But the difference is, what's the difference between fard and wajib?
Both you incur sin for if you leave.
Okay. What's the
if you
difference?
don't believe in it, then
So how are they established? What's the difference in their establishment?
Definitive proof.
So fard is established by a definitive proof, right? Dalil qat'i,
Yeah.
right? The chain, right?
Both.
And the meaning is definitive. Clear? As for something that's wajib, right? The Hanafis, this is how they make this distinction, right? It's established by a dalil that's dhanni. It's speculative, right? But all the other schools say it's sunnah mu'akkada, right? That being said, so they hold it of a lower category. So that means, according to the majority, that if you leave it, you would not be sinful, right? You would be missing out on a great reward. You would be leaving a practice of the Prophet ﷺ that he would do consistently even when he was traveling, right? And we talked about if you were to leave and emphasize sunnah for a period of time, that some scholars have said that it can be sinful because it shows a disregard or a dislike for the sunnah. But even the other scholars who said it's sunnah mu'akkada, right? They held it of really high importance. For example, the Hanbalis, Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, he held it to be sunnah, but he says that whoever leaves off sunnah, that basically the person's testimony should not be accepted. Like he's not a person of credible testimony. So this is just kind of showing you like the importance given to it. Abdullah ibn Amr ibn As, who narrated that the Prophet ﷺ said, Allah has added a prayer to your prayers, and that is witr. This is one of the proofs that the Hanafis use, that Allah has added a prayer to your prayer, and that is witr. A companion by the name of Buraidah, he narrates that the Prophet ﷺ said, witr is the truth, so the one who doesn't perform it is not from amongst us. Meaning not from amongst us is not following our way. Does not mean is not from the Muslims. Okay. Witr is the truth, so the one who doesn't perform it is not from amongst us. Witr is the truth, so the one who doesn't perform it is not amongst us. Narrated in the Sunan of Abi Dawood. How to pray witr. According to the Hanafis, witr consists of 3 units prayed together with one set of salams. Once again, according to the Hanafis, it consists of 3 units together with one set of salams. So according to the Hanafis, the minimum witr that can be prayed is 3. Right? According to other scholars, the minimum that can be prayed is 1 rak'ah by itself. Right? According to the Hanafis, they only have, the minimum is an absolute 3 rak'ah witr. So it is prayed just like Maghrib. Right? It is prayed just like Maghrib, right? With 2 major differences. Number 1, it is also mandatory to recite Surah Al-Fatiha and an additional surah in the 3rd rak'ah as well. Is that clear? Right? Because in a normal 3-unit prayer like Maghrib, you just recite Fatiha in the 3rd rak'ah, right? Over here the difference is you recite Fatiha and a surah after it. Ibn Abbas, he narrated that Prophet ﷺ read Surah Al-A'la, Al-Kafirun, and Qul Huwallahu Ahad in the units of witr. And this is something that you find the majority of scholars, they said this is what is recommended to read in witr. Right? In the 3 units of witr, in the first rak'ah you read Sabbih Isma Rabbika Al-A'la, in the second rak'ah you read Qul Ya Ayyuhal Kafirun, and in the 3rd rak'ah you read Qul Huwallahu Ahad. And this is what most scholars have taken. There is a narration that's attributed to Prophet ﷺ that is of somewhat of lesser authenticity, that mentions reciting in the last rak'ah Qul Huwallahu Ahad along with Surah Al-Falaq and Surah Al-Nas. And perhaps you've heard an imam do this before, that they recite Qul Huwallahu Ahad, Qul A'udhu Bil-Falaq, and Qul A'udhu Bil-Nas, right? And there's no problem in this. They're just, they're just showing you that this narration does exist, although it's of lesser authenticity, right? But what's kind of agreed upon is this is what is recommended to read. You can read anything in it, but it is best to read Surah Al-A'la, Surah Al-Kafirun, and Qul Huwallahu Ahad. That's the first difference, right? The first difference was that you recite something after Fatiha. The second is that after a person, so we're talking about the 3rd rak'ah specifically. So in the 3rd rak'ah, after the person recites Fatiha and then a surah, the person makes a takbir. In this takbir, they raise their hands, right? Just like they do when they begin prayer. And after they raise their hands with this takbir, they fold their hands. Right? And this raising of the hands is considered to be sunnah. Are you with me? So in the 3rd rak'ah, they recite Fatiha, a surah after it, let's say Qul Huwallahu Ahad, and then they say Allahu Akbar. The same Allahu Akbar that they use almost when they're beginning prayer. Right? This raising of the hands is sunnah. If someone were to not do it, they're leaving off a sunnah, not a wajib. Right? They raise their hands, and then after they raise their hands, they fold their hands and they recite what is called the qunut. Right? And according to the Hanafis, the recitation of the qunut is wajib. According to the Hanafis, the recitation of the qunut is wajib. According to the majority, the recitation of the qunut is sunnah. So if a person were to leave it off, then they've still prayed witr as long as they've prayed in odd number of units. Right? But according to the Hanafis, you have to do qunut. Now, there are different narrations, different du'as that are said for qunut. If you go to a masjid that recites the qunut out loud, right? You most likely hear the imam, sometimes he will begin with praise, like Allahumma lakal hamdu anta nuru samawati wal ardi wa fihin. Oh Allah, belongs to you the praise, or belongs to you praise and thanks. You are the light of the heavens and the earth. Or sometimes they'll just start with one du'a of qunut that's famous. Allahumma hdini fi man hadayt. Oh Allah, guide me with those that you have guided. Wa afini fi man afayt. And basically keep me well or give me well-being along with those that you've given well-being to. Clear? Right? وتولني فيمن توليت وبارك لي فيما أعطيت. Oh Allah, bless me in that which you've given me. وقني شر ما قضيت, and save me and protect me from like the evil of that which you've decreed. Right? Basically save me from tests and trials. Right, till the end. The one that you find the Hanafis take is this narration, perhaps some of you know it. Allahumma inna nasta'inuka wa nastahdik. Allahumma inna nasta'inuka. O Allah, from you we seek assistance. Right? Allahumma inna nasta'inuka. Right? O Allah, from you we seek assistance. Wa nastahdik. And we seek guidance from you. We seek hidayah from you. وَنَسْتَغْفِرُكَ, and we seek your forgiveness. وَنَتُوبُ إِلَيْكَ, and we turn to you in repentance. وَنُؤْمِنُ بِكَ, and we believe in you. وَنَتَوَكَّلُ عَلَيْكَ, and we rely upon you. وَنُثْنِي عَلَيْكَ الْخَيْرَ كُلَّهُ, and we like attribute all good things to you. Like we praise you for everything that is good. نَشْكُرُكَ وَلَا نَكْفُرُكَ, we thank you and we do not, basically we're not ungrateful. Yeah, we thank you and we do not reject you. وَنَتْرُكُ مَنْ يَفْجُرُكَ, and we abandon whomsoever disobeys you. Allahumma iyyaka na'bud, O Allah, you are the only one that we worship. وَلَكَ نُصَلِّي, and you are the only one that we pray to. وَنَسْجُدْ, and you are the only one that we prostrate to. وَإِلَيْكَ نَسْعَى, and you are the only one that we strive towards. وَنَحْفِدْ, and we hasten towards. نَرْجُو رَحْمَتَكَ, we hope for your mercy. وَنَخْشَى عَذَابَكَ, and we're fearful of your punishment. إِنَّ عَذَابَكَ الْجِدَّ بِالْكُفَّارِ مُلْحِقٌ, and indeed your punishment will be carried out against the disbelievers. Right. This is the standard qunut that the Hanafi say this is what is wajib to recite. Anyone memorize this growing up? No? So, just out of curiosity, if you don't mind me asking, in your witr, what do you guys recite?
Right now?
Not when you pray behind an imam. Because when you pray behind an imam and he's doing it out loud, sure.
So I read in the book that the minimum that would suffice is رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنَةً. So I read that right now.
Okay.
That's how I memorize.
Okay. Is that what you've always read, or you just?
No. Before was shady.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else? Mona?
I learned this one.
Huh?
I learned this one.
You learned this one? No, it's Hanafi. Anything but Iman? Anyone learn this one? No?
I learned this one when I came here.
Okay. Before that, would you recite anything, or?
Wait, no, I had a question.
Go ahead.
So for the other schools, one can just pray one unit of prayer and nothing
Now-
before it, nothing after it.
Yeah, 1 unit of prayer. The schools allow this. Right. Now, that being said, everyone kind of like agrees that the majority practice of the Prophet ﷺ was 3 units. That was like his sunnah, what he would pray 3 units, right? But yes, some schools allow just a 1 unit for witr. Many scholars allow just a 1 unit as a minimum, right? They say it fulfills the concept of witr, right? And they don't obligate the dua, or they don't say it's wajib, they say it's sunnah.
And the dua can just be Rabbana.
So if a person doesn't know this, right? If we take that they have to recite something, for example, the Hanafis say that at the minimum they should recite, for example, say 3 times, Allahumma ghfirli, Allahumma ghfirli, Allahumma ghfirli. Oh Allah forgive me, oh Allah forgive me, oh Allah forgive me. Right? And they would say this like is sufficient. They would say it's better for them to memorize this dua, right? But saying Allahumma ghfirli, Allahumma ghfirli, Allahumma ghfirli. Clear? or saying 3 times as Najib said, رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنَةً وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ حَسَنَةً وَقِنَا عَذَابَ النَّارِ, right? Or, and like we're just talking about, like the bare minimum at this time, like if they really just came into Islam, right? If they just said like something along the lines of Ya Rabb, Ya Rabb, Ya Rabb, like oh my Lord, oh my Lord, oh my Lord, and even technically it's not a dua, it's just a, you know, just a calling upon Allah, right? But I mean, if they're gonna say Ya Rabb, you can say Allahumma ighfirli, like it's, you know.
Is the numbers like also have to be 3?
They that's what the Hanafi say is, you know, 3. So it's kind of like, it's not just very short. So it at least has some meat to it, right? But this is a dua that, you know, whether you're Hanafi or not, everyone is, you know, accepts this narration, or this is one of the qunuts that the Prophet ﷺ would make, right? Once again, Allahumma inna nasta'inuka wa nastahdik wa nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk wa nu'minu bika wa natawakkalu alayk wa nuthni alayka al-khayra kullah nashkuruka wa la nakfuruk wa nakhla'u wa natruku man yafjuruk Allahumma iyyaka na'budu wa laka nusalli wa nashhadu wa ilayka nas'a wa nahfid narju rahmatak wa nakhsha 'adhabak inna 'adhabaka al-jidda bil kuffari mulhaq. And even sometimes when you hear the imam making witr out loud in the different masajid, you'll hear this sometimes at the beginning, right? Going back to a few things, right? Now we said the Hanafis, they pray witr, or according to the Hanafis, you pray witr just like you pray maghrib, essentially, with those 2 major differences, right? The other schools of thought have other ways to pray witr, right? Generally, the Hanafis are the only ones who pray witr in this manner, right? Besides the whole difference of what is the minimum amount, right? We said other scholars say that you can just pray 1, but it's always preferable to pray at least 3, right? But you can pray just 1. But the other 2 ways of praying witr is that you pray 2 rak'ahs, you say salams, right? And then you get up and you pray 1 rak'ah by itself. And in that 1 rak'ah, you recite Fatiha and a surah after it, right? And then you go into ruku', and then when you come out of ruku', you make dua, right? And also sometimes, and this is also fine, this is found in the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, that after the surah, after Fatiha and the surah, you can make dua immediately and do the ruku' afterwards. Does that make sense? So according to others, the dua can be either after ruku' or even before ruku'. Like it's become more common, right, to do it after ruku', but also it exists before ruku'. Is that clear? That's one. So that's one way to pray. Another way to pray it, and the Hanbalis are known for mentioning this way, is this way that I've mentioned, and the other way is, anyone know? No. Yeah, what?
I heard an opinion from another shaykh that you would pray like Maghrib without sitting in the second.
Yeah, so 3 straight units. 3 straight units, right? Without sitting between. So 1, do your thing. 2, after the second rak'ah, get straight up. Get back straight up, right? And this is essentially the same thing without the sitting. And then once again here for the dua, either after ruku' or before ruku', right? And usually, for example, like when I lead Qiyam in the last 10 nights, this is the 2 that I switch between when I'm leading the people. And I'll tell the people, like if I'm praying 2 in 1, I won't say anything. But if I'm praying 3 straight, I know people are less aware of that, so I'll mention that, guys, we're going to pray 3 straight for witr. Right. You had a question?
I think I did that for me. It wasn't a question. That's
okay.
what
Yeah. Anyone ever prayed this way? Seen it prayed this way? No? Really? No? Just the 2 in 1, never the 3 straight? Okay. Also, there are narrations to suggest the Prophet ﷺ, authentic narrations, not narrations, there are authentic narrations that mention the Prophet ﷺ, sometimes he prayed witr as 5, he prayed witr as 7, and he even prayed witr as 11. Right? Now, some of the scholars, they mention, for example, if a person is praying 5 or 7 as witr, right, then what they would do is they would get up after every single unit. Like they would never sit down except the last sitting. Is that clear?
Straight up.
Yeah. So like you're getting up every time, right? Until you get to the last one, right? 5, 7, right? The other, for example, and then there's also narrations of the Prophet ﷺ praying witr as 11, right? But those narrations seem to suggest it was 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, and then 1 by itself, right? But you might hear this if somewhere later on in life that hey, witr can be prayed as 5 or 7 or 11, and there are authentic hadith that do mention the Prophet ﷺ praying witr like this.
So,
Yes.
go back to Qunut. You said you would make takbir and you would hold your hands again. You were saying, raising them.
According to the Hanafis, this is the way that you pray with it. Now, if you're praying behind someone, that now hypothetically, just so if you did raise your hands, it's not something that would invalidate your prayer, right? Is that clear? But let's say you were praying behind someone that was doing qunut out loud, and right in Ramadan, right? And this problem because you're following the imam, there's no issue of holding your hands up for dua, right? But even if you were praying by yourself, right? According to the Hanafis, you fold your hands, but if you did put your hands up, it's not something that would break your prayer. Any other questions regarding witr?
The dua, if it's not qunut, does it have to be in Arabic?
Does the dua have to be in Arabic? This is a great question. Okay. So this is a good question. I was going to delay it, but let's answer it. Okay. In a fard salah, let's go backwards. In a fard salah, there are, you could say the majority said that du'as that you make. So the Hanafis, what we took is that du'as that you make in salah have to be from the Quran or Sunnah, or that which resemble the Quran and Sunnah, right? But not necessarily like, oh, Allah bless me with a car or something like that, something like that, nothing like that. And the majority of scholars, they're kind of more loose on this. Like they say it has to be in Arabic, right? But it doesn't necessarily have to resemble the Quran and Sunnah, right? They say it has to be in Arabic. Some scholars, they said that no, it doesn't have to be in Arabic, but we advise that in a fard salah, any dua that you make is done in Arabic, right? So if we're talking about a fard salah, then keep it in Arabic, right? Because the majority says it has to be, and a small minority says it's just be on the safe side, keep it in Arabic. Right? As for your nafil salah, right? Even if we're talking about dua and sujood before qunut, right? We're talking about dua and sujood. I would say the majority said that, it has to be in Arabic, right? And a minority said that it can be in a language of your choice, whatever you're comfortable with, right? In nafil salah. And Shaykh Farhan leans towards the majority opinion. I personally lean towards the minority opinion here, that it can be in a language that is other than Arabic, right? And that's what I tell people. Look, guys, if you're praying and you don't know, du'as in Arabic, because a lot of people don't, you just make du'a in whatever language you feel comfortable with, right? Right? Is that clear? Now, along the same lines, you can apply the concept of the dua of witr, right? That the majority says it has to be in Arabic, right? And anything other than Arabic would break your salah. The minority, they allow generally in nafil salah for a person to make dua in other than Arabic, right? But you find that minority, I feel like, with witr, they're a little hesitant, because you'll just get, especially if it's in congregation, it can get a little interesting, right? Now, there are a few imams that I know of, right, within North America, that when they lead witr in their congregations in Ramadan, they do it in English.
When leading?
Yeah, when leading. I mean, it's the same issue, whether they're by themselves or they're leading, right? It's the same, they just have more people behind them, right? But I do know a few imams, right?
So like, in English, like, reciting it or like, speaking it?
That's a great question. I've never heard it myself, but I've heard it from people that I trust that are imams themselves that said so and so, does it. It's their regular practice, right? If they are reciting it, or and I've heard some imams not they're trying to make fun of salah. And once again, and I don't, I say this we're not trying to look down upon them or question their intention. I know that they're doing it for a greater good or a greater cause, right? What's differed over here is this something permissible? We believe that their prayer counts and they're following, an opinion that is a minority, and I personally don't, I know Sheikh Farhan not about that, sticking with the majority. I'm a little uncomfortable with that, even though I tell people that nafil salah that, hey, if you don't know Arabic du'as, try to stick to Arabic du'as. If you don't, then whatever, make du'a in sujood or whatever in English, right? But with it, I'm a little uncomfortable. I don't know, especially lead people, and I don't know. I feel like it can get a little dangerous, right? I don't know. But yeah, I guess you can rhyme if someone's really good at, because the du'as usually in Arabic they flow well together, So if if someone can rhyme with it, sure, right? I believe Sheikh Yasir Qadhi said a few years ago, I'm almost positive about this, he said a few years ago that he was okay, completely okay with, witr, the qunut of witr being done in English, right? I don't know if he's ever practiced it in his community. I need to ask him. But I'm almost positive he said he has no issue with it, right? Because I know he believes that, in nafil salah, it's permissible to make dua in another language, right? But I feel like he said, just, from amongst people that are notable or that you might know in North America. But yeah, it's kind of, I don't know. I feel like it has a certain beauty in Arabic. I don't know if it would be as beautiful in English. I don't know. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I have one more. So, in congregation, when the imams are saying the dua, they sort of recite the Quran. Is that proper?
That's a good question. So repeat your question one more time.
So when they're making dua out loud, and they recite the dua Quran rather than just saying it.
Okay. So they recite the dua. There's no problem in technically reciting the dua, right? I get what you're saying. They say it in a melodious tone. They don't recite it like the Quran, because they're not. Sometimes they won't. They won't stretch. They won't say Rabbana atina fid, you know what I'm saying? They won't do the mudud. But what I'm understanding right now is they recite it in a melodious voice, right? Some people have a problem with that. I don't see a big issue with that reciting it in a melodious tone, right? I don't see an issue with that. But I will say very clearly, how should I put this? The witr, when it's done in congregation, the dua of the witr should not be a performance. It should not be a performance. And I feel like a lot has become very, very common for it to become a performance, right? And you'll hear people say stuff like, and I don't, once again, not get into people's intentions, we're not about that, but sometimes people will pray behind someone, and they'll oh man, that was beautiful. It was beautiful. And what they meant by was the melodious tone of the dua was beautiful, right? And that's not the purpose here, right? Or it's oh, that was beautiful. I'm yeah, it was this is people who don't even know what the du'as mean. What did the imam say exactly? I don't know. It just sounded really nice. Okay, it was it's about the dua itself, right? Would the feeling be the same if it was just someone making dua without the super melodious tone, right? So this is more for the people that are leading and stuff. It shouldn't be a performance. I think that, right? It's just recite the du'as, whatever, right? You can add a little emotion to it. I don't see major issues with that, right? Certain scholars have put restrictions, it has to be very just say the du'as, made it, I don't know, perhaps put a lot of restrictions, and I understand it, right? Other scholars have just kind of left it wide open, right? But I feel that there's a balance between the two where a person can recite them and it's not a performance. And at the same time, it's understood that like perhaps when a person is seeking protection from the hellfire in dua, and it's done out loud, there's going to be a little more emotion, right? And certain du'as, right? When you're making dua for people that have passed away, or you're making dua for people that are being oppressed, right? Naturally, there's going to be, right? Because this is coming from the heart, right? But the whole concept of like, you know, for example, like sometimes you find like a person like shouting into the mic or something, like, you know what I'm saying? Like in witr, like, dude, you got the mic, like, dude, it's okay, like Allah can hear you, right? ادعوا ربكم تضرعا وخفيا, like call out to your Lord in a state of humility, and like, don't be like super loud, like I can hear you on the mic, right? Does that?
I feel like sometimes it gets dragged on for too long.
Huh?
I feel like sometimes it gets dragged on for too long.
I agree. I agree.
I was at a am up in NorCal, and we were with him. He had to be making the dua for like 5 minutes. I'm like, I don't know anything that you're saying right now, so it's like, what's the point? You know, it got to the point where I'm like falling asleep. It's like late. It's like 11, 12 o'clock at night, and he's just like on and on and on. I'm like, shit.
Okay, look, I'll be honest. I don't see 5 minutes as long, right?
It might have been, I don't know, but like I just remember like sitting there. I was just like, after a while, I was
like, look, I'm be honest. Like in Ramadan, like if you're by yourself, then whatever you're doing is whatever you know, that's your business, right? But especially in Ramadan, right? You know, whatever. If like on a nightly basis, if you're doing it like at the end of Taraweeh, like I get it, 7 minutes, you know, max 10. I think max, but I feel like 10 might, you know, and I get it. In the last 10 nights, usually it's made a little longer. On the odd nights, a little longer. If the congregation finished the Quran that night, a little longer. I get it. You know, those special occasions. But like where it's just like generally like, you know, gotta keep it vague. So there's a masjid that prays 20, right? Last week a visiting imam came, because he does have a nice voice to lead witr, and he led witr and the dua was like 16 minutes. I'm like, dude, you can't. I'm like, you can't. Like I wasn't there, but I was told by the person who leads Taraweeh. And he was like, dude, like it was backbreaker, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, and this is the brother that had just led the 20. Right? So he's usually less tired than the people that prayed behind him. They're more tired, right? He's just tired of reciting, right? Because he led 20. But like 16-minute witr is, come on, like it's a little long right now. Like we're still in the beginning of Ramadan. Like keep it a little short. Like go easy on the people. So understanding that too, right? Obviously, yeah, a person can sit down, right? We believe a person can sit down if it's too long, right? I remember when I was in college, like, you know, certain imams, it was known, like they would have these qiyam programs, and if he got on them, I remember, oh my god, one qiyam, I'm not making this up, like I can find the recording somewhere, oh god, he went for 50 minutes. He went for 50 minutes in dua. 50? 50.
That's another Taraweeh.
Yeah, for dua, 50 minutes. They started, the masjid started turning the lights on and off to signal to the imam, like, dude, like, cut it out, like, we gotta feed people suhoor right now. Right? But, yeah, I remember when I was younger, like, you know, there were certain imams that kind of got famous for like, having, like, super long, like, believe me, it's gotten better, right? But they got known for, like, just having super long witrs, like, very, very long. Right, where it was like some people were like, "Oh, it sounds beautiful," and it was just more like I felt like, you know, it was performance. And some people were like, "Dude, if he's leading with it, I'm out." You know, so you know, obviously keeping the situation of the people in mind. So 5, 7, 10 minutes, right? Yes, in the last few nights, you know, on the odd nights, if it's, you know, a little bit longer, if it's the 27th night or the 29th night, or if they're finishing the Quran, I don't see an issue with it being a, you know, longest on that night, whether it's, you know, 20 minutes or something like that, right? But we're not talking about an hour or something like that, right? So I think also, you know, obviously, the imam himself, he has to keep the congregation in mind. You know, it's that juggling between, you know, like you're leading the people, right? At the same time, trying to stay sincere, not make sure what you're doing is not a performance, rather it's just, Quran, obviously you want to recite it in the best manner possible, but the dua is dua.
So, for us,
That was your question, right?
for us learning Hanafi fiqh, like going to the masjid now and pray with him differently.
Pray with it behind
join them in congregation, or should
Yeah, no. Don't ever break off. No. Like, because look, like if they're praying a different way, pray that way. No, you pray that way, right? Just like we mentioned, for example, even more important than this would be the Asr Hanafi time. The Asr Hanafi time is different, right, than the majority Hanafi time. It comes in later, right? We said if you're ever at a masjid and they're praying Asr early, then pray with them. Right? Don't.
What if, because this happened to me, I got there like just after they finished Asr. So I was going to just wait until Hanafi time came in anyways. But then there was a brother who was like, hey, let's pray. And I was like,
so I mean, like we said, that opinion of it coming later was the opinion of Imam Abu Hanifa, but his two main students, they disagreed with him, right? Abu Yusuf and Muhammad al-Hasan al-Shaybani, they disagreed with him, and they went with the majority that it comes in at the earlier time. So just pray. What's important, that you pray.
As for if there's another method and they're doing hands during the standing, we should have our hands.
No, it's fine, have your hands.
No, like if we don't want it's like just down, it's fine.
No, then folding them.
Oh, fine.
Folding them, right.
so technically, someone can legally be praying, a Hanafi can legally be praying Dhuhr while someone else is praying Asr.
Technically, yeah. Like from a legal perspective, right? But you find, and I was talking to Shaykh Farhan about this, like he told me about a year ago. Generally, the Hanafis, they say that they advise, right? They advise not to pray Asr, or they say it's disliked to pray Asr after that. After that time where the majority says the Dhuhr ends and Asr comes in, right? That time gap, they say it's disliked to pray a Dhuhr then. Once again, mura'atan lil khilaf, keeping the difference of opinion in mind and just avoiding it. So technically, yes, a person, right, could be praying, a Hanafi could be praying Dhuhr, and Shafi'i or Hanbali or Maliki could be praying Asr. Technically, yes, right? But like I said, they say it's disliked, or they don't advise it, right? Because of the difference of opinion. Anything else?
Sorry, do you say Ameen out loud during Dua?
Do you say Ameen out loud during the dua? There's no problem saying Ameen out loud during the dua. Like if you're praying behind someone that's and if you said it silently, there's no issue either.
Slightly different topic, but the whole 18-15 thing, is that like a strictly Hanafi opinion, or is there even a difference of opinion in that with the whole 15-18 degrees?
Are we talking about Fajr?
Yeah, and Isha.
The Isha thing is a strictly Hanafi thing.
So Isha is 18.
So according to let's go back. According to the Hanafis, when does Isha come in? When does Isha come in, according to the Hanafis? After Maghrib end. When does Maghrib end?
A white line on the horizon.
When the sun is completely yellow.
When does Maghrib end?
When the it gets dark, bro, like when the twilight, the light.
Yeah, how many twilights are there?
There are two.
There are two twilights. Okay, there's two twilights. Huh?
There's the white one and the red one.
Okay.
And which one is it?
Yeah.
The second one.
The second one. Which one comes second? So,
The red.
so there's a Shafaq al-Ahmar and there's a Shafaq al-Abyad. A Shafaq al-Ahmar is the red twilight, and the white twilight is a Shafaq al-Abyad, the white twilight. Which one comes first?
So the red would come first, and then the white. I'm guessing.
Thank you, because some of you said the opposite, but obviously you guys don't look in the sky. If the red comes first, and then the white comes. Okay? It is real. So according to the majority, when the red twilight disappears, that's when Maghrib ends, and that's when Isha comes in. Okay? According to the Hanafis, it's the later one. When the white twilight disappears, right? After that, that's when Isha comes in. That's where you get that delay in Isha. Not that delay in Isha, but right, that Isha comes in at a later time, right? That's that issue, right? As for the Fajr issue, everyone says Fajr comes in at the same time. Everyone says Fajr comes in at the same time. The whole issue of 15 and 18 degrees is not an issue of Hanafi, Shafi'i or anything like that. Rather, it's an issue of trying to figure out how many degrees below, how many degrees is the sun below the horizon when this white vertical or horizontal line appears above the horizon, right? This concept of dawn.
So that's the difference of opinion, just in general.
In calculation, not amongst madhahib, right? Now, generally for North America, they say that 15 is closer, right? So meaning you have more time to eat. That makes sense, right? The people that follow 18, right? Basically, they have less time to eat. For North America, we talked about this. We said 15 is closer. It's not deterministic, like it's not completely like 150%, but it's the closest thing, right? For example, if you go to, I mentioned this, if you go to Saudi Arabia, they follow al-Qura. al-Qura calculation does 18. So on the 18 calculation, you have less time to eat. So we tell people if you go to there, then do 18, right? But if you're here in North America, then the majority of masajid, or the overwhelming, follow 15. Some still do follow 18, right? But that's more of a difference of, they were trying to, it's not a difference of opinion amongst madhahib, but they were trying to determine when does this horizontal line appear? How many degrees below the horizon does the sun have to be? Good? Anyone else?
Rest to witr. I've heard that you have to pray with it.
Good. Okay, should we do that now? Okay. Good. I'll get to that. If I don't get to that, then right, because I'm about to talk about. So we talked about how to pray witr, when to pray witr, right? Now the time for witr starts exactly when Isha comes in, except that it shouldn't be prayed before Isha itself, right? That's when the time of witr comes in. And the last time to perform witr is before Salatul Fajr, right? Now, witr should be the last prayer that a person performs at night. Right? So if a person, they pray Isha, right? The last thing that they pray at night should be witr, right? Now, let's say you're, I don't know, let's say you pray Isha at like, I don't know what time, Isha comes at 9, so let's say you pray Isha at 10, right? But you, I don't know, you sleep at 12, right? It's advisable, it's more preferred that you pray witr before you go to sleep and not at 10. Clear? But if you know yourself that like, hey, I'm gonna pray Isha at 10 and then like, I'm making intention to pray witr at 12, but like, it ain't happening because like, I'm be so exhausted and I'm not going to throw water on myself even though it's sunnah to go to sleep in a state of wudu. I'm like, I'm not going to do that, I'm just going to go to sleep, right? If you fear, like if there's this, you know, and even if it's your regular practice, then just pray it after Isha, right? But if we're talking about what's more advisable, what's more preferred, is that it's literally the last thing that you do before you sleep at night, right? If you knew for a fact that I'm going to pray tahajjud tonight, let's say it's a night in Ramadan and you have no school the next day or whatever, it's a weekend and you're attending a qiyam or whatever, it's one of the odd nights and you're like, I'm praying tahajjud for sure tonight, right? To the point where I'm not even sleeping, right? Like I'm not going to sleep for the few hours. In that case, it would be advisable to pray witr all the way at the end and not after Isha, right? If it's a scenario where, let's say, you're going to pray Isha, you pray some Taraweeh, and you're going to wake up for Tahajjud, and you know like 95% You're going to pray witr, you're going to pray tahajjud, you're going to get up because you've been getting up. Then we'd say that, look, it's better that you pray tahajjud and then you pray witr at the end, right? It's still advisable that you pray witr at the end. But if it's like, look, I'm going to go sleep tonight and inshallah I wake up, hopefully I get up after 2 hours, but I might not, I'm really exhausted, then we say just pray witr now, right? Instead of leaving it off. Clear? Now, in the case that you pray witr after Isha, right? And then you happen to end up praying because you just ended up at a masjid or whatever the case may be, or you got up, it's just not Ramadan, but you got up early and you're like, I got some time to pray, right? In this case, then you just pray. There's no issue of praying after Salatul Witr. You can pray, right? You would just pray 2, 2, 2, 2. You would not pray another witr at the end. You would just pray, as many 2 units as you can, right? Are we good so far? Okay. That's generally what to do. That's what most scholars say to do. Some scholars, and perhaps you've heard this opinion before. Let's say you go to the masjid. Let's say Ramadan. Ramadan is like easiest to use in terms of examples. But Mustafa Bibi said the My Dua app has the qunut. If anyone wants it written down in Arabic and English, he said the My Dua app has it. Okay, yes. Some scholars have said, let's say you go to the masjid, you pray Taraweeh, and then you pray witr, right? And then you end up praying tahajjud, right? So they said what you do here is, what you should do here, as they suggested, is that you cancel out your witr. The way that they suggested that you cancel out your witr, right, is that you pray 1 rak'ah by itself. You pray 1 rak'ah by itself. The purpose, they say, behind that is cancelling out your witr, because witr means something that's odd. So you make it even. Huh?
You just get up after?
You just pray 1 rak'ah, say salams. Like a 1 unit prayer.
So when the masjid finishes witr, do you do salam?
No, I'm giving you 2 options here. I'm going to give you both scenarios, right? In scenario 1, you prayed Taraweeh, right? You prayed witr. The witr with the imam. As a few hours pass or whatever, you wake up a few hours later, whatever the case may be, you wake up, right? This minority opinion says that you get up and before you pray your tahajjud, you pray 1 rak'ah by itself. Fatiha, surah, 2 ruku', 2 sujuds, tashahhud. Clear? And then they say after this, now you pray your tashahhud, your tahajjud, 2, 2, 2, 2 is whatever you're going to pray, and then you pray your witr. Clear? We good? This is a minority opinion, I'd say. Still, some scholars say it's fine, right? If someone follows this opinion, you don't have to correct them. But now, what Mona was mentioning is scenario number 2. Scenario number 2 is that you're praying Taraweeh with the imam, and then you're praying witr with the imam, knowing that you're going to pray tahajjud. Is that clear? What the difference is here? So you're praying Taraweeh with the imam, you're praying witr with the imam, knowing that he's going to pray tahajjud, knowing that you're going to pray tahajjud. Clear? You have a few options here. For example, according to the Hanafis, you just don't pray witr with the imam. Or you pray witr with the imam and you say salams when the imam says salams, right? And then you pray your tahajjud afterwards, whether it's in congregation or whatever, right? A minority said that actually what you can do here is when the imam says salams, you get up and you add 1 more rak'ah, right? So that you ended on a even unit and not a odd unit. Clear? And then after that, you would pray 2, 2, 2, 2, and then pray witr at the end, right? You guys remember we talked about this issue of the intention of the imam and the intention behind him, right? Now those that were strict about it, that like the imam and the ma'mum have to have the same intention, or at least if not the same intention, have to pray the same number of units, right? This goes back to this issue. Can you pray a prayer knowing the Imam's going to pray 3 and I'm going to pray 4. Those that were strict about this issue, they said, no, you can't do this. The Shafi'is who were loose, they said, all scenarios are good for the most part. No problem. The Imam prays 3, I'm going to get up, I'm going to pray 1 more after the Imam because I'm going to pray witr later on. Right? What I would suggest in either of these situations is, if the Imam's going to pray witr, for you guys, I think maybe or Hanafi, then, pray witr with the Imam or don't pray witr with the Imam. Usually what I do is, if I know that I'm going to pray tahajjud or I have to lead tahajjud and I want to pray witr with the Imam, I'll just add 1, taking the Shafi'i opinion, right? But the opinion of just praying 1 unit by itself after the fact, right, is a very minority opinion. Was that clear? So these are all different scenarios, right? Going back to, if you know you're going to pray tahajjud, if you don't know you're going to pray tahajjud. Right? The main thing is that you pray witr, right? And you try your best to make it the last thing at night. But if it doesn't end up being your last thing at night, then you're allowed to pray after it. And there are narrations to suggest that Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, at times he would pray witr, and then after his witr he would go to sleep and he would get up and sometimes he would pray tahajjud. Are we good? Okay. Any questions on witr? No? Okay. After that we have nawafil. Nawafil are voluntary prayers, right? Nawafil is the plural of nafilatun. 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 Right? Which literally means something that's extra or something that's an addition. And nawafil is a general title. It's a general title that is given to prayers that are not fara'id. Okay? Understand this, that nawafil is a general category, right? Or a name that's given to prayers that are not fara'id. Within the category of nawafil, you could have emphasized sunnahs, non-emphasized sunnahs, or just prayers that are voluntary. So all 3 of these categories would go under nawafil. Now, according to the majority, witr would also be under that category. Does that make sense? Because witr is a emphasized sunnah. These are prayers that were taught to us by the Prophet ﷺ, that he taught us of their virtues and their blessings and their rewards. And there are means of us raising our rank in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And also they're there in place to make up deficiencies or shortcomings that were present in our obligatory prayers. Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu, he narrated that the Prophet ﷺ said that the first thing that people will be called to account for on the day of resurrection will be prayer. Our Lord will say to the angels, although He knows better, look into the prayers of my slave and see whether he has observed it properly or was negligent in it. So if he observed it properly, it will be recorded to his credit. But if he has been negligent in any way, Allah will say, see if my slave has any voluntary prayers. Right? The purpose, once again, like I mentioned, of the voluntary prayers is one of the main purposes, besides earning the blessings and the forgiveness and the reward, is to fill the gaps or the shortcomings or the deficiencies in our obligatory prayers. Allah will say, if he has any voluntary prayers, make up the deficiency in my slave's obligatory prayers with his voluntary prayer. Thereafter, all his deeds will be examined in a similar manner. So we begin with the emphasized sunnah prayers, right? We said the nawafil is a broad category. Within it are a few smaller categories. So we start with the emphasized sunnahs, right? What's called as-sunanur rawatib, right? Now the emphasized sunnahs are emphasizes mu'akkada, right? As-sunanul mu'akkada or sunnatul mu'akkada, right? The 12 rak'ahs that are prayed either before certain prayers or after prayers, those are called sunanul rawatib. Clear? Two different phrases, right? Sunnah mu'akkada means it's an emphasized sunnah. Within the category of emphasized sunnah, the most common is what are known as the sunanul rawatib. Sunanul rawatib. These were sunnahs that were prayed constantly by the Prophet ﷺ, things that he basically never left. Right? And there are 12 units specifically throughout the day that are emphasized. Habiba, one of the wives of the Prophet ﷺ, she narrates the Prophet Habiba, she says that the Prophet ﷺ said, whoever prays 12 rak'ahs in a day and night, a house will be built for that person in paradise. So these 12 sunnahs that are known as as-sunan al-rawatib, they are number 1, 2 units before Fajr. Of all the 12, these are the 2 most important. If we were to categorize, the 2 before Fajr are the absolute most important. Aisha radiallahu anha, she narrated that the Prophet ﷺ said about them, they are dearer to me than the whole entire world. And these are 2 sunnahs that the Prophet ﷺ would not leave even when he was traveling. We find the other sunan that we're about to talk about, that amongst the 12, the Prophet ﷺ sometimes would pray them, sometimes would leave them, right? But these 2, meaning he would sometimes leave them, sometimes pray them while traveling. But while traveling, these 2 would never be left. Right? Now, just so, like the majority, when they talk about emphasized sunnahs, at the top of that category is witr and these 2 sunnah of fajr, right? So it's essentially the same thing, it's just how do they classify witr? Because they even say, the majority says the witr is something the Prophet ﷺ would not leave even when he was traveling. Right? So at the top of their list is also the 2 before fajr and the 3 of witr. After that, the second is the 4 units before dhuhr. Aisha narrated the Prophet ﷺ never left praying the 4 rak'ahs before dhuhr and the 2 rak'ahs before fajr under any circumstances. Right? But like I said, the 2 before fajr are even more emphasized. But so it is sunnah to pray 4 units before dhuhr. Now if a person for some reason doesn't have the time or forgets or whatever the case, they don't pray these 4 before, then they can pray these 4 afterwards. Clear? These are the only of these sunnahs that are generally allowed to be made up. Right? And I'll talk about the 2 before Fajr. There's something I forgot to mention. But these 4 can technically be made up after Dhuhr Salah. When we say made up, we mean made up right after Dhuhr Salah. Like someone enters a masjid, they're already praying Dhuhr, pray Dhuhr with them and then make up these 4 units afterwards. Really quickly, going back to the 2 units after Fajr. The 2 units after Fajr, they are so emphasized that the Hanafis in particular, they say that if someone shows up to the masjid and the congregation has already begun praying Salatul Fajr, right, that they should pray those 2 sunnah even though the congregation has started, as long as they are sure that they will catch a part of the congregation. Is that clear? Now the majority say no. Person goes straight into the congregation, right? And they say that once the congregation has been established, there's no other prayer besides the congregational prayer, right? But the Hanafis in particular, and this you might see this. You sometimes you see this in masajid, that the Fajr congregation stands up. Someone walks into the masjid, and they're praying sunnah, and you're like, oh, what's going on, right? According to the Hanafis, like, it's that emphasized that if a person, ends up in that situation, they should pray their sunnah first, even if, like the congregation has already started, as long as they are sure they will catch a part of the congregation. Clear? Number 2, we said 4 units after dhuhr, before dhuhr. Number 3 is 2 units after dhuhr, right? And then number 4 is 2 units after maghrib. And then number 5 is 2 units after Isha.
And then 4 units before Dhuhr we prayed as 2 and 2 or 4 straight units.
Generally is 4 straight. Generally is 4 straight.
That's within all the
I believe some have allowed it as 2 and 2. Okay, then we go into non-emphasized sunnahs, right? These are things that the Prophet ﷺ sometimes would do and sometimes he would leave them off, right? They weren't like the Sunan al-Rawatib, right? Number 1 is 2 or 4 rak'ahs before Salatul Asr. 2 or 4 rak'ahs before Salatul Asr. So like for example, let's say you walk into a masjid. I'm just using an example of masjid. You could do so at home, right? Or at work or whatever. But let's say you walk into a masjid and the adhan has gone off. And you go in and you're like, you know what? I'm going to pray Tahiyyatul Masjid, right? Your Tahiyyatul Masjid, your intention should be that I'm praying these 2 sunnah or these 4 sunnah before Asr. And that will count as your Tahiyyatul Masjid. Because as I think I've mentioned before, Tahiyyatul Masjid, this prayer that is prayed usually to greet a masjid, is not a specific prayer. There's no 2 rak'ahs of Tahiyyatul Masjid, right? It is a way of greeting the masjid, that before you enter the masjid, you pray something before you sit down, right? So let's say you go into the masjid, adhan of dhuhr has already gone off, right? And you're like, well, I got some time, let me pray my 4 units of sunnah. Those 4 units that you pray before you sit down in the masjid, those will count as your sunnah, but they will also count as your Tahiyyatul Masjid. Clear? But the intention should be that this is my sunnah, right? Does that make sense? Or like if you walk into the masjid before Asr, this is my sunnah that I'm praying, and it will also count as my Tahiyyatul Masjid.
Can you do that with the fard?
Yes, let's say you walk in and the congregation has already stood up or is about to, like, right? It's like there's iqamah being made. That fard, you don't have to make the intention of Tahiyyatul Masjid. Does that make sense? You don't make the intention, this is my Tahiyyatul Masjid. It's understood that this counts as your Tahiyyatul Masjid. The Tahiyyatul Masjid literally means the greeting of the masjid. How is the masjid greeted? That you pray before you sit down. Right? Let's say you walked into a masjid right now. Right now you walked into a masjid. Right? Right? You walked into a masjid right now. Right? Now, it's not before Dhuhr, it's not before Asr, right? But you could be like, I just want to pray right now. I feel pious right now. Or, I want to pray my Salatul Duha right now. Right? So, okay, Allahu Akbar. This will count as my Tahiyyatul Masjid as well. But your intention is whatever that prayer is. Is that clear? Yes? Sarah? Good? Okay, so 2 or 4 rak'ahs before Salatul Asr, and then 4 rak'ahs before Salatul Isha. The next is voluntary prayers of the day. Voluntary prayers of the day can be prayed either in 2s or in 4s. And to do more than 4 with 1 taslim is disliked. So generally 2 or 4, and that's what you should stick to, right? Nothing more than that. Voluntary prayers of the night. Voluntary prayers of the night. Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah, he said that one can pray up to 8 units with 1 taslim. Right? But his 2 students, they disagreed with him and they said that it should be prayed in units of 2. And once again, this was the common practice of the Prophet ﷺ, that he would pray in units of 2. Right? Like I said, there are some narrations to suggest the Prophet ﷺ, he prayed witr as, how many rak'ahs? Before 11? 7 or 5, and he would do so with 1 taslim, 1 sitting at the end, all the way at the end, right? But generally, the night prayer should be prayed in units of 2. Okay. The difference in recitation of fard and nafil salah. In a 4-unit fard recitation, in a 4-unit fard prayer, recitation is wajib in the first 2 units, and in the second 2 units, one has a choice to remain, to read, or to remain silent, or to make tasbih. Let's go back, okay? And I mentioned this in passing, right? In a 4-unit fard prayer, 4-unit fard prayer. So we're talking about Dhuhr, Asr, and Isha. Okay? The recitation of the first 2 units is wajib. Right? What's wajib exactly? They have to recite what? They have to recite Fatiha. They have to recite Fatiha and the surah after it, or verses after it, right? These verses after it, we said the majority said this is sunnah, right? But the Hanafis say that you have to recite Fatiha and you have to recite a surah after it. And in the second 2 units, one has a choice to read Fatiha, right? To remain silent, right? Even if technically they're praying by themselves, or to do tasbih, like say Subhanallah 3 times. Right? Don't. I don't know what you're thinking about. Just read Fatiha, man. Just read Fatiha. As for a nafil prayer, then recitation is wajib in all units of nafil and witr. Nafil, recitation is wajib in all units of nafil and witr. Once again, this is a very, very technical point, right? Not going to change the way you pray. Hopefully it's not. Can we do this? Okay. Prayer of the sick person. Can we do it? Okay, let's do it. Prostration, prayer of the sick person, someone who's sick. If a person is so sick that it's difficult for them, or it's impossible to stand, right? Let's first of all define that. What does it mean it's difficult or impossible, right, to stand? It means that standing in prayer would cause intense pain, or there would be a fear of the illness becoming more severe or becoming more prolonged. Once again, if it's difficult to stand, because standing is a rukn. Standing is a rukn, right? That's why we talked about like this concept of like sometimes people who don't know, you find sisters, they like because of like they're in a public place or something like that, they'll pray sitting down. And we said that standing is a rukn, right? What's an exception to that is that it's difficult or impossible. It means that there's intense pain already that exists, or there's an illness or some type of, let's say something's broken, and there's a fear that the illness will become more severe or become more prolonged, right? And the fear has to be reasonable fear, right? How is reasonable fear determined? That once it's based on past experience, or it's something that's very, very clear and obvious, or it's the medical opinion of a skilled Muslim doctor. And even if it's not a Muslim doctor, then many scholars have said it's fine, you can't, Now what would this person do? The first scenario is this person would pray while sitting, right? Whether that's sitting on the ground or sitting on a chair, right? And they would still make ruku and they would still make sujood, like proper ruku and proper sujood. This is if their issue is specifically standing, right? So in this case they would sit, right, on a chair or on the floor, right? But then they would make proper ruku and they would make proper sujood. Now usually the case is if they have problem standing, then they have problem making ruku and making sujood, right? But if they didn't, if it was specific to standing, then they would make ruku just like as they normally do and make sujood the way they normally do. Now number 2, if they're unable to make ruku and sujood, then they would just pray using head movements. What do we mean by that? Is that they would pray sitting down, right? And their ruku' and their sujood would be simply by lowering their head, and the head movement for sajda should be lower than the head movement for ruku', right? So after you recite or whatever, right, you say Allahu Akbar, you lower your head, right? You get back up, and then you go into sujood, and your sujood is just once again a lowering of the head that is a little lower. Now number 3 is, if the person is unable to sit and pray, then they would pray while lying down on their back or on their side using head movements. Like this is their entire prayer, right? They can't stand up, they can't sit down, right? And in this case, their face should be facing the Qibla. It should be towards the Qibla. Number 4 is kind of where we have some difference of opinion. According to the Hanafis, number 4, if one is unable to make gestures with one's head, right, then the prayer should be postponed until able to do so, right? So we're talking about a person who's conscious, but is like, cannot do it, like completely. We're not even a head movement, right? The Hanafis in this case, they say the person should just postpone their prayer, right, until they're able to do so, and they're not considered sinful for this, even when they make up their prayers, right?
You have to make it up, right?
Yeah, they have to make it, right? It is if they're conscious, right? Some scholars, they said that a person, if they're in this state, then they can pray how? With their eyes, right? With their eyes. What is meant by their eyes? That the movements for, like for example, they would say Allahu Akbar, and the movements for ruku' and sujood are simply done by blinking. Is that clear? The Hanafis, they said no, rather the person just postpones it until a later time. Right? Now, and this is a caveat to this, that if this situation that we just described, number 4, where the person is unable to make gestures, right? If this condition lasts for more than a day, then the obligation of those prayers is lifted and does not have to be made up. Right? So the person is conscious but cannot move, right? So they say the person delays the prayers. If this situation of the person lasts more than a day, right? Like it lasts 6 prayers, right? Then the person does not have to make it up. If it lasts like 3 prayers, right, then the person would have to make it up. Okay, we good so far? Number 5 is going to also have some difference of opinion. Number 5, if someone is able to stand but not do ruku' or sujood, they don't have to stand. If someone is able to stand but cannot do ruku' or sujood, they don't have to stand. Rather, they would pray sitting, and the ruku' and sujood would be with head gestures, right? What do you think other scholars said? I mean, to figure out the difference of opinion is very easy here, right? They said that if the person can stand, right, the person has to stand, because standing is a rukn, right? And they can do that rukn, so they can't leave it, right? But then they said the ruku' and sujood would just be with gestures. Is that clear? The Hanafi said, no, look, if he can't stand, then basically that just, sits down and, if he can stand but he can't do ruku' and sujood, then he'll sit down and do ruku'.
How does the salah look for a person standing but doing gestures for ruku' and sujood?
Good. How would the salah look, right? They would stand, right? And then after that they have kind of 2 options, right? For ruku', they could kind of like sit down and lower their head. And then for sujood, lower their head even lower, right? Or they could just stand, remain standing, and for ruku', just lower their body, right, to a certain portion, and for sujood lower their body even more than they did in the first situation.
Got it. So when people sit down on the chair like when they're going to go to ruku and sujood, that's okay. And then they stand back up.
Yes. Right. So according to the Hanafis, I'm good you asked that question. According to the Hanafis, right, this person that's praised, like sometimes you see this mentioned, the person is standing up, right? But when the congregation goes into ruku or sujood, they sit on the chair and they lower their head, right? According to the Hanafis, this person can just sit, right? According to other scholars, like the Hanbalis, this person has to stand. They have to stand, right? It's ruku and sujood that they can't perform, so the concession is for that. So they don't give them concession in all the things, it's just for the standing, right? So that's why you see people do that sometimes, right? They'll stand with whatever they can stand, but for the ruku and the prostration portion of it, they sit down. Right? But technically the person could do it while standing, right? But perhaps it's easier if they sit down to do it, you know, to do the head motions and whatnot, perhaps. Number 6 is, and we'll end with this, if someone loses consciousness, okay? If someone loses consciousness, right, for a duration of 5 prayers or less, they have to make them up upon recovery. But if someone loses consciousness for 6 prayers or more, they don't have to make it up. And there was a companion who had a certain sickness, Imran ibn Hussein. He asked Prophet ﷺ about prayer. Prophet ﷺ told him, offer prayer while standing if you can't pray while sitting, and if you can't, then pray while lying on your side. Ali radiallahu anhu narrated that the sick person is to pray standing if he is able to. If he can't, he should pray sitting. If he can't make sajda, he should make a gesture with his head and make a gesture for sajda lower than the gesture of ruku'. If he can't pray sitting, he should pray while lying on his right side facing the qibla. If he can't pray on his right side, he should pray while lying on his back, right? So even from this, like the lying, right? The lying on the side takes preference, or lying on the right side specifically takes preference over lying on the back. Right?
How do they pray like that?
Huh?
Like how do they make?
Simply just gestures with their head. So the standing is right, not there because they can't. So they're just lying down, right? And the ruku' and the sujood, right? Depending on their movement, but it's just, once again, it's a gesture or a head movement with the intention or with the realization that you're going to make the sajda gesture a little more than the ruku' gesture, right? So hypothetically, if like this is all I can move my head, like my chin touches my chest, right? Then for ruku' I would just go down slightly, right? And then pick my head back up. And then for sujood I would say Allahu Akbar and put my head down. I mean, we ask Allah to never put us in that situation, but just, you know, if we see people or family members, or, you know, la qaddar Allah, we were to ever end up in that situation, that's how it would be, right?
Do they like sit up a little bit or just move their head?
If they're laying down
On their back, for example.
if they're laying on their back, right? It really depends on their. If they can sit up, right? Then they should just pray sitting, right? Most likely, if they're lying down, they don't have that ability, right? So it's just going to be head, right? It's most likely not going to be any bending of the back.
Yeah, it's sitting, so I have some people like bending, that's fine.
Yeah, that's fine, right? And even, by the way, you see sometimes like for ruku', you see them on the chair like this, right? And then for sujood, sometimes you see them like they put their hands out like this. This is not necessary. You don't have to do this, right? What is necessary is the gesture of the sajda is lower, right? So you can just keep your hands on your knees, right, and just go lower. You don't have to put your hands on the invisible ground right there, right? It's fine, right? They can stay there. You just lower your head, right? Tomorrow we'll continue with Sajdatul Sahw, or Sujood al-Sahw, the prostration of forgetfulness. Go ahead.
Just to clarify, you mentioned that it's wajib for the Hanafis to recite Surah Fatiha and Surah for just the first 2 units. And then for all the other schools, it's held that the recitation of the Surah is just Sunnah for all units.
The recitation that comes after Fatiha?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's Sunnah for all units for the other schools. No,
Yes.
wajib.
Yes. They don't, I mean, see, right, once again, they don't have that category, most of them, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's Sunnah. It's Sunnah.
Interesting.
I was gonna ask, this might be hard, but the woman giving birth, if it lasts longer than 6 prayers, would it fall into the same thing of not having to make up? That's just that.
I have to look into that. I have to look into that. I don't know.
Oh yes, shit, the article.
Yes, the article is clear already. Okay, so tomorrow we'll continue with Sujood al-Sahw. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. I'll show you how to get through this.
So,
Wa alaikum.